And Greg.
Cool. Hello. Hello and welcome. Get a little Jason Fensky over at Engineering Explained over there. Thank you for tuning in. This is the Shifting Lanes Garage podcast. I am Gregson, and the two gentlemen over there, nope, always point the wrong way, over there to wherever it is on your screen, my left on your screen, we have Chad as usual, and we have Elliott Alvis joining us again as our number one most favorite top recurring guests, the best, and all of his socials are
at this point, I think we just start referring to him as our part-time host.
There we go. I'm cool with that. I don't have to worry about which way I point because I can get this in frame.
Yeah, you can do the Brady Bunch thing where you're just like looking around, like right from the middle. But yes, and if you want to follow him on all of his lovely car adventures, all of his socials are right below him. Elliott Alvis on basically anything. Go search him. Go follow him. He's great. And some cool stuff that he'll talk about, I'm sure, on this podcast / stream. He just did another Worldwide Auctioneers show, which we watched a little bit of and shared on some of our socials, which was a lot of fun. And
thank you guys for doing that. That was awesome.
Yeah, of course, no problem. And it was a lot of fun watching some of that because I haven't had a chance to really tune into a lot of it recently because I never caught them when they were live. But since you messaged and we're like, hey, we're live, I was like, yes, I can actually watch this finally.
Yeah, they're great. Hours long, so I get it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's funny because they were basically like what was it, like 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, some of them, but I'd never actually caught them when they were on. I'm like, damn it, I really want to actually watch one of these live. So we got to see a couple of cool cars.
I think we got to see
you present. It was great.
Thank you. I think we were talking about this particular podcast that we are on currently, and I was like, sure thing, I'll get to it. I'm kind of in the middle of a live thing right now, and that's how that came up. And you're like, right this second? I'm like, right this second.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Chad had messaged you and said, hey, I have a good idea for this Wednesday. And you were like, oh no, I'm actually live, or you're live. And I think I was the one that said, are you live, or are you like going live? You're like, no, I'm about to drive across the stage. Stop messaging me.
And then I proceeded to message him once every 5 minutes, just
yeah.
I kept hoping to catch him in a moment where he's just sitting in the car and he just looks down and shakes his head. I kept hoping for that moment.
I was waiting for you to whip out your phone. Yeah. Just go silent and then put it back.
I try to stay pretty focused when I'm in the car, just due to the not wanting to stall in front of the live crowd, and then also the entire internet and everything else. And each one of those cars is so different that you're like, well, I know how to drive stick. That's not the issue. It's just like you don't really know where the catch. Every car is so different. You're like, oh god, and there's an incline to get up there. Right. And you're like, please don't stall. And yeah, it's just one of those. And once you get up there, you're like, oh man, everything's okay. All right.
Yeah, it's very interesting where you have sometimes you drive a Porsche Carrera GT where you can let the car roll on its own, basically, with letting off the clutch, and then also a 70s era muscle car where you have about a decade's worth of clutch travel. So it's very, very different for you, but also very cool. So we have Elliott joining us on this show. Thank you all for joining us. I see a couple of you joining in chat. Hello, Doug. Thanks for joining as usual. And we also are going to talk about more stuff for Chad's car, because we do have some news there. If you didn't tune into the last episodes, Chad's car unfortunately caught on fire a couple of weeks ago due to a battery malfunction, not to do with the build on his Mustang. We are now in the process of getting him oodles of insurance money to get him another car, which is lovely. But we also asked Elliott to come up with a list of cars that could be alternatives to what he already has and is looking for. And we have that lovely list curated for him. I have the list, and I'm going to awkwardly send him the links because he's the MC of this podcast, and he'll put them all up on the screen for you. But he is sort of in the dark with all of these, at least. So Elliott sent them to me. We're then going to show them to Chad, and we'll get some live reactions for you guys. So with that said, how are you boys doing tonight? How's it going? How's everything? How's life?
Fantastic for me. I mean, well, I'm coming off of the worldwide fantasy high. Just like a full week of we had to do the tour and then the auction, and then it was like, all right back to regular life. So you're like, but other than that,
my normal life is boring.
It really is by comparison. I'm like, I just was like, can we make this happen constantly? I'm doing this.
Yeah.
But no, it was really great. How are you, Chad? Are you better than last week? Because I did tune in to the Mustang episode, and that was a toughie.
Yeah. It's been a month. I'll just leave it there.
Yeah.
Some of the people who, I don't mean to start the show with a downer, but some of you guys who've been back a few months' time when we did our charity stream for Debbie's Dream, which is a stomach cancer foundation. My buddy who unfortunately was fighting that lost. So that's been this week. So this is a welcome distraction. This is a welcome, just pick myself up from looking at cars, watching cars I want get sold, and then losing a golf buddy and everything and stuff. Like, this is a nice, let's just take all of that and huck that off to the side, apart from the car shopping, because it's the main topic of today. But,
yes.
It's just a nice way to, that's one of the things I love about cars, the car community, and things of that nature, is the distraction, is the, we can sit around, quote unquote, our campfire here and talk cars, bounce ideas off of each other, and it's nice because it is reality, but it's kind of a break from it, if that makes any sense. So I'm looking forward to today. I'm really looking forward to Elliott's suggestions, because he had some pretty interesting ones when we went through this exercise with Greg, of which Greg almost immediately ignored. But
not true, actually. I recently talked to a couple of people, and a couple of those cars have crept onto the list. So definitely worthwhile. And if you didn't listen and or watch that stream, basically I am in the market for a sporty car that's going to be cool, not lose a lot of value, and basically be just interesting and fun to drive around, potentially mod a little bit without losing a ton of value. Hopefully, later this summer, in the fall, and Elliott had curated a really good list of cars that fit that criteria. That was a lot of fun. And some cars on there that were really surprising. Lotus Elise never would have considered. Honda S2000 definitely is on everyone's list because they're just great driver's cars. But basically Elliott has done the same thing here for Chad's replacement car. So that's just a little bit of backstory as to what we're going to kind of get into pretty soon.
Sure.
So then let's do that, because let's give Chad that nice little distraction. And one, I think I can speak for all of us. We're very sorry for your loss and for your buddy's loss. But you know what? Let's talk through this stream with these cars and get your mind off stuff. And I'm gonna start with sending you the first link, which will come to no surprise.
Links, it shouldn't say what it is because it's such a jumbled, %5 and whatever. Hopefully it won't just say what the car is.
Well, so the way I'm doing it is individually links, because Elliott had sent me a Facebook message with all of the links in together, which is great.
I categorized them. Give me a little credit.
You did. You categorized them very nicely. I will say. I'm sending them sort of one at a time to Chad, so he's kind of gonna see what the cars are actually before he puts them up on screen. But he is in the dark as to what the link I'm sending to him, at least. So he doesn't know anything that's coming,
except for the link you just sent.
Well, yes. I mean, you'll see them as I send the links to you, but
Okay. Yeah, and I can explain all of these, and you obviously. I'm surprised we opened with this. Okay, first of all, your criteria was obviously more focused than what Greg gave me. Greg was like, sports cars in this range that won't depreciate. That actually took. I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta think about this for a minute.
Yeah, mine was wide ranging for sure.
You've been pretty clear about what you want and your exact budget and everything else. So this is the most to the T thing that I thought was a representative of it. It's a clean, low mileage S550 and a great color combo, in my opinion. Manual. Of course, I don't know exactly your preference on that, but I liked this one, and I believe it seems pretty bone stock. So, blank canvas, possibly parts transfer car. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I said, this was just the most to the mold.
Yeah, this was the on the nose one before we move forward.
So you knew this was coming for sure.
Yeah, I had an idea. I should have. I immediately looking at it. I'm gonna make comments on this, and I just want to
Of
get
course.
this out of the way first. This is by no means. I am extremely appreciative. Elliott took his time to look at stuff to help me. Like, I just want that to be right out in the open, because right off the bat he got it wrong. But no, I say that with all the love in the world. Again, I am extremely appreciative for the help. Yes, an S550 Mustang is on my list of cars because it makes the most financial sense given a certain budget parameter. So, do the manual car, V8. That's just the basics, right? The big thing is that I have retail $29,000 in parts sitting in a car that will never drive again unless someone gets that shell, puts a roll cage in it, and turns it into a race car.
Sure.
Something I would love to do, but unfortunately I need a daily driver. So,
Boo.
yeah. I mean, out of all of us, I think I had the most extreme daily driver. Just saying.
You
Yeah,
did,
that's
for
accurate.
sure, without a doubt.
Again, this is where I had kind of wished I had like put some parameter to it. I had been a little bit. This is probably the only time you're ever going to hear me say this, but this is the one time I wish I had been a little more Gregson and a little less Chad. Nobody clip that, please.
That
Oh,
will be
yes.
our YouTube short for tomorrow.
Yep.
But so when it comes to the S550 platform, I have two requirements. Number one, this is a what is this? This is a 2019, so that's good right off the rip. Just 2019s have
Man, 30K. That's such good value for money.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I was like, this one's so, I don't know. I'm waiting to hear where he has a problem with this one. So let's let him finish.
I know. I already know one of them right off the bat for sure.
And I will say this with the other caveat, it gets better from here. This was just the most like,
This is
this
the
is
left.
what he wants.
That's
is
why I
like-
led with this one.
I literally told Elliot, here's the cars I'm looking at the
Right.
moment. So
And
like
I promise it gets better from here. But
Again-
I'm ready to hear more.
this is a great platform. So the great thing about the S550 platform is everything that's on my car can go onto this car. One of the things, though, when I'm looking at this, and some of our glorious members in chat know this because, well, frankly, they're being awesome as Elliot and helping me locate vehicles and stuff. Just because I've had a little bit of run of bad luck with cars I've liked and then immediately selling. Number one of my requirements is the performance package. Now, this has the performance package wheels, but there's no underhood to see if it has the strut tower brace, which is a dead giveaway. And I cannot tell with the brakes. I can't tell.
I mean, they are red. I mean,
Someone has painted them, so I believe these are the 4 caliper regular ones, that not the 6. So the 6 piston calipers with the 15-inch rotors on the performance package S550s is the most impressive thing about them stock, in my opinion, because of just how well that it breaks. And that's not me talking. We have a reel out there of Greg squealing like a little girl because of how impressive the brakes are.
Accurate.
I love
it
black.
is funny talking about a Ford braking, by the way. Sorry.
Well, you know.
On multiple levels.
It's
and,
stop-
and thank you, Vic. Thank you, Vic, for the compliment. He complimented my kitchen.
And then Vic actually got it nailed one of the other things. So if you go to the infotainment, one of the things I want
Yes,
is the big
I always call that the rental screen.
right. I want
That's
one of
exactly what I call it too. It's so accurate.
It's basically the screen they had to put in because backup cameras are required. But
It's so
Yep.
but
It's so bad.
the Sync 3, I think it's 3. With the bigger screen, I think it's 8.3 inches. I don't know exactly.
Yeah. That's the Sync 1.5 right there. Just half of the 3.
Yeah. But having navigation, but more specifically having that access to CarPlay is a big one
yes,
for me.
that's big. I
So
know.
like that's it. Now here's the thing, right? The brakes I can transfer over from my car. The dash the infotainment I can transfer over from my car. It's not a big deal. Where I do draw a line in the sand, and again, this is a great example. It's a beautiful car. It looks very well taken care of. I am a sucker for black on red interior. I do like that. White is a color I'm very. The rest of the car has to be perfect kind of color.
That's the one I was gonna say. It's the white.
That's it. That said, this is one of the more better values if it does have the performance package. I can't tell by looking at the brakes, and it irks me that they never say this.
Somebody looked it up that the window sticker on that car does not include a performance package. So Doug in the comments said that. I believe it. I mean, like I said, I like the color combo. I like the mileage.
We're running into personal preference at this point. Elliott likes X. Chad is strange.
I'm with you. I wouldn't buy a car without at a bare minimum the premium package, the screen, because especially as a daily, it makes all the difference in the world. Once you live with CarPlay, you're like, I'm never doing this other crap again.
I agree with that.
But that's far.
So I get it. I honestly didn't even notice the screen when I clicked through. So that's all.
I've been through so many of these that it's the wheels and the screen are the first things I go to. And what's really weird to me is the interior is leather, but the screen
that's what I'm saying. Normally that rental screen goes hand in hand with cloth. So, and then very rarely have I seen the performance pack wheels. It's an oddly optioned car now that we're really diving into it.
Here's the thing.
If you're looking for a good Mustang, this looks like a pretty good one. Really, and for $30K, this is a lot of car.
Right.
Again,
you're still getting 426 horsepower, whatever it is.
Yeah. These are 460.
460.
The Gen 3s, which are fun little coyote fact. The Gen 2 and there's a lot of differences between Gen 2 and Gen 3. We don't have to get into them all today. But one of the ones that I didn't know that is like crazy interesting to me is that the Gen 3 Coyotes are I think they're like 20 or 30 cc larger in displacement.
It's a very odd thing to change.
Well, what I'm guessing is that when they they upped the compression from the Gen 2 to the Gen 3 from 11 to 1 to 12 to 1, and they changed the piston design. And I'm thinking that's kind of where the displacement bump came from.
It's just such an odd little bump, but I mean, great.
I mean, if you think that's strange, F-150 Gen 3s have a different firing order than Mustangs.
That's weird. That's weird to me.
And it's not a different
good news.
crank.
It's very hard to get a Coyote F-150 anymore. Thanks, EcoBoost boys.
I mean, there's a decent amount of them, and if you can get one that looks like a work truck, and with some minor mods, run 11s pretty easily in them.
It's pretty sick.
But
it's pretty sick.
It's pretty interesting. The crank is the same, but I'm guessing instead of like one piston is on the downstroke, the non-fire stroke, that one they mixed that. I don't know why they did it. I was listening to an absolutely epic and fantastic podcast with John Lund of Lund Racing, and like he is the Coyote tuning daddy, especially if you're on the stock computer. And he was going over all of these. Short version is he has a 2,400 horsepower 2015 Mustang GT on the stock computer that ran a 6.7. Like, so it just
which is wild.
Kind of goes to show you just how powerful the stock Ford computer is.
So we have this one. I'm going to move on because we have a lot more links to get to. But this was number one. I'm going to send an absolute wild card to Chad next.
Okay, I was wondering what order you were going to do this in. So
it's just totally random, which is going to make it even better.
That is better.
I'm trying not to look.
Now, guys, for the audience, I did. Okay, now listen. I got to defend each one of these, and I already know right off the bat this is a no. But any list, I just know it I don't want to hear it from anybody else. Any list would be a little remiss not to mention it for that price point and everything else. I'm like, I could just see somebody forever be like, how did you not even mention the, STI? I was like, you can get a pretty new low mileage STI. Now, we've talked about this, I believe, practically every time I've been on about the issues with these cars and the
I think
problems
one
they
of them
present,
even
especially
shut down our
for
stream.
somebody like
so
you who likes to mod them. But I mean, this is a, kind of almost like a, brochure kind of spec STI, right in the price range.
This is good.
And it's like I said, I know this is a no, but the list with that criteria
I mean,
would
yes,
have been missing something without this car.
It's due diligence. You're being thorough.
Yeah.
So I get it. Here's
honestly, this ticks a lot of boxes for you. Quite frankly, it does.
It does. Now,
certain cars do.
Here's the thing. I used to be quite into Subarus. I remember.
Trust me, I've spent my fair share of time in them. It's not. I mean, I'm not speaking from a place of no experience. It's just.
It's
yeah.
So we're talking going all the way back to when I was in high school, and not a friend, but not a close friend, had a GC8 coupe, and thinking that was peak design, and I wanted one quite badly.
They are the best looking WRXs of all time. Yes. I feel.
Well, we never got the WRX. This was just the GT or whatever the hopped up NA version was. Again, I was in high school.
2.5 RS, basically.
There you go. I remember that. I remember loving what's the one with like the 3 grills? That is second to me as far as looks.
The Hawkeye, the 06, 07, before they went to the wagon. Not wagon, the hatchback.
Yeah.
I think it was.
So they had
I can't remember what predecessor.
They had the Bug Eye and then the Blob Eye and then the Hawkeye.
Yeah.
And then the Hot Hatch. So I like
call
the
that
Hawkeye.
one the Stink Eye.
06, 07.
Yeah, definitely the Hawkeye.
And they had the little rooftop spoiler as well. They added that from because they had 04, 05, 06, 07, and then it's been nonsense ever since.
I remember really liking
this.
those.
I did like this body style.
I do like this as well. When I remember when this came out, I remember feeling like, are they sharing notes with Mitsubishi? Because this and the Evo was always the Evo
10, yeah,
and the Subaru. If they were the same color with no badging, you instantly knew. Now you can instantly know with this because hood scoop. But I remember this they sort of were almost answering the same question stylistically, and I don't know, but I've liked Subarus. I've even thought about a quote unquote Subaru build. Like I said, I'd love to get my hands on a GC8, put in I forget the name of the company, but they make a pretty reliable. I think it's 2.3 or 2.4 liter bit version of the EJ20 or whatever. I've always thought about that. I've always liked
Turn-in customs.
Yeah, I think it's the Honey Badger is their name for it or whatever.
Yeah,
because every industry calls something the Honey Badger. There's a Subaru engine called the Honey Badger. There's a PDW that's called the Honey Badger.
Including Formula One.
Yeah, and
they have a driver named the Honey Badger.
And some spoiled Canadian ran into him, but
that's accurate.
Right. Well, let's just go over why this is a no for you.
Well, number one, I like you said, modifications. I don't like cars that right off of the bat I have to make smart.
Take the engine out and beef the block up to the point.
Right. I don't like. I mean, there's a time and place for that, but I don't like doing. I don't like having to do reliability mods first. I loathe going stage 0. I was like, look, this thing needs new brakes. Why not just get better? I don't want to return it to stock. Okay, I'm doing coils and spark plugs, or we're redoing exhaust, all these different little things. Now I understand interior, making sure with Volvo you do a glove test, you make sure the I'm gonna lose my
PCV. You got it.
Systems right. I get all of that stuff, so you have a good place to build up, right? But for me, the most excited I get about a car is all right, here's the car I want. What can I do to it?
Right, and this is very not that. Which is like I said, I know that.
And it's like I said. Let me put it to you this way: if I was given an STI Subaru, very important to add the Subaru. It's
I know, it's like we talked.
Yeah, yeah, good.
yeah.
Good
Don't tell that story again. It crashed the stream last time. I would defend it like it was my baby, right? It's I don't. It's there's a lot of stuff. It's the fact that these things are unreliable when you start really modifying them. It's the
Guest appearance.
yeah.
Yeah, we have a kid that should be in bed right now. It's now hiding.
One of these days, I have to hit my nephew and your kids, and they just run the stream.
Oh, that actually would be awesome.
Fantastic.
Just kids stream, and then
We need it.
we
That
get
would be the
billions
April
of
1st
views.
stream for next year.
Yes.
Um,
I will be right back.
Jesse, thank
No
you
worries.
so much for the
Yeah.
stars. I appreciate you, buddy. As weird as it sounds, it's just like I've thought about it, and like again, for me to get it to a point where it's like, look, I like power. All-wheel drive with power is great. I just don't like the idea of having to go out and buy a short block or take it to an engine shop.
Immediately.
And then also, as weird as this sounds, I don't know how to put it because I'm not over my JDM phase by any stretch of the imagination. Well, for example, one of the cars I was looking at that happened to fall within this price range are early Lexus RCFs, which I would absolutely like.
Those are cool.
You know, but like the 4-cylinder stuff, like I don't know, like as a second or third car, maybe, but as like
Right.
the car that like it's really hard to put a reason on no because it does make so much sense. It's just not for me at this moment.
No,
in time.
I also get it as friends who had these as dailies, and then the inevitable Subaru stuff would happen. And I've been this way with certain cars in my life. I think that it's best said you don't want to be stressed out or concerned about your daily. And I
Yeah.
feel like you're always on the verge of something with one of these cars. Like it or not, it's just kind of the way they are. Like I said, I had an RX-8 for a daily for like a year or so back in the day, and nothing ended up happening because I know how to take care of them. But I was so worried about it the entire time, and it makes for not a very good daily. So
Yeah. Well, it's also one of those things that, like, also, right? One of the. So I don't know how much time you've spent with like one of your cars being extensively modified and then sitting on as they go through it on the dyno. Dyno
that's
sessions.
gotta be nerve-wracking too.
It's one of those things where it's like, this is awesome, and then like they get to a point where you're like, I don't know if that is that too much
Please don't hurt
RPM, you know, and then
Yeah.
like they let off, and it's like, whew, that was a rush, like skydiving almost, right? It's like, come on, parachute, like, you know what I mean?
Yes, for sure. That's a good analogy.
And that correlates into, I don't want to spend all this money on mods. I don't want to be like, yo, this car is awesome, enjoy it for 2 months, only to find that something's broken. And I'm not saying that if you modify one of these correctly, that's going to happen. It's just having that potential, or in the back of your mind. It's like, I'll give a perfect example. It's like the reason they totaled the Mustang was because the heat. They don't know if it did something to the metal of the frame rail. They can't test the hardness of it
Sure.
everywhere, and they can't test the strength of it. It's compromised. Is it okay for daily driving and a little bit of enthusiast driving? Probably. Is it something I will always think in the back of my head every time there's a little bang or not a bang, but like an odd noise coming from that side, even if it's like a rock just coming up on the, like, touching the undercarriage? You'll always have that in the back of the head, and no matter what, that's always going to detract from the enjoyment of it. Like I said, I would love to get my hands on an old Subaru. Like I tell Greg this all the time. One of the things I want to do, my plan was to do it either this summer or next summer, but I have another build that I didn't intend to be doing, so that might push things back. But I've always wanted to go to like an O'Neill or a Dirtfish and go to rally school.
I know, that'd be so cool.
One of the things, the thing with the Mustang is that I had a couple mods to do, and then it would be, for that phase, done. right? Like a project car is never
Right.
done, especially when you're dealing with me, but like done to
Right.
such an extent that I could go out and enjoy it for the reasons I built it.
For
Right.
sure.
And after that, one of the things I really wanted to do was spend time at a rally school and spend time going back to a road race school and really up my level of driving.
For sure.
I'm not going to sit here and say I'm the best driver or a great driver. I believe I'm better than most. I do have more training than most and everything, but I want to up that. I want to be able to, so like just say, for example, we're lucky enough and I get to a situation where we can do almost, I don't want to say car track, but like some internet style show like that, where there's a production to it. That I can go out and test the car that and put that Top Gear or Grand Tour flair to it. You know,
Yeah.
the reason Top Gear and Grand Tour was so much better than like a Motor Week, which was awesome, was the fact that they're drifting these things, they're driving them around a track, they're showing what could be done with them, even if 99% of the people who were watching couldn't afford one, or even if they could, they weren't going to drive it in that fashion. I want to be able to do that and not like have the worry that, okay, I got this. Like 9 out of 10 times, I am money, but that 10th time, I'd like it to be 99 out of 100, 99 out of 1,000, like that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Like, so, I like Subarus, man. It's just, I would want something else. And if I was to do a Subaru, like I said, I'd probably go, I know people have done it, but I'd go the GC8 route and eventually make a 22B clone.
See, that'd be awesome.
So I was going to say,
okay.
Chad's biggest gripe with his car is probably because it looks like a Civic,
That's not-
that's the only thing I'll mention about this generation, or about all WRXs / STIs, is basically every Subaru enthusiast being one and owning a hatchback WRX for many years. Everyone's the new one comes out and everyone goes, "Oh man, that's the worst looking thing ever. How dare they?" And then 4 years later, everyone's like, "Ooh, that looks good now," because the next one's coming out. And it's the cycle. It's like, these look great now. Everyone's biggest complaint was, man, they made it look like a Civic. And now the new one came out and they're like, wow, that one looks great now.
Yeah.
I mean, it does say something about your brand when it's like every time you release something new, people hate
keeps
it.
getting worse.
But then you release something else new, and they were like, "Well, that old one is better." Like,
Yeah.
you
But
know,
that's
I will
the
say this.
Subaru
I will
way.
say this. I would have this Subaru over Greg's hatchback 11 out of 10 times.
Yeah, the
I just
hatchback is
never.
a acquired
Look,
taste,
I
for
get,
sure.
I get.
Yeah, they drive fine. I never liked them either. I was so bummed in '08 when they were like, "This is the new thing," and you're like, "They were so cool for so long. How did you do this?" They're great driving and everything else, but it was like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so I get
And
it.
Greg's actively tried to kill us. So by
Well,
by
I haven't. The
unintended.
car did.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Your car actively tried to kill us by unintended weight savings, and by which weight savings I mean we don't need 5 lug nuts.
Yeah,
true.
that was a fun trip where 2 of the lug bolts decided to shear off, and I had to stop every 10 miles to tighten the 3 that were still
Oh my
existing.
goodness.
That was a fun drive, and then I had to get it trailered to the dealer to put new lug bolts on because I didn't have them, and I sure as hell wasn't driving that thing.
That was the day we drove the Lamborghini at Thompson Raceway in Connecticut.
Yes, which
Anyhow.
again, also the first time I was very impressed by braking. Anyway, next
So I would
car.
have put one of those on the list, but it didn't fall within the budget.
Nor even
yeah.
even if my budget
Gallardo
was
is
enough
always
to
the good
include Lamborghini,
Yes.
or any major supercar like that, with the possible exception of an MC20, just because I love the way those things look. Like I see
I know,
one.
yeah.
Wow,
There's
you're talking
one-
to a Maserati man, so you don't have
There's
to
one
tell
in
me twice.
town, and every time I see that car, I fall in love with it all over again. But I am not a supercar guy. Like I would much rather spend a $250,000 building something to smoke a supercar than a supercar. If that makes sense.
We have a CD dealership here in town called Supercar Guys.
Really?
They do not sell supercar. They're going for the superhero thing, but it just comes into like Supercar Guys, and it's like, it's a whole thing.
It sounds very cringy.
But they also, the guy who owns that dealership also owns our Subaru dealership. So I don't know. I kind of came full circle.
Well,
Anyway,
I mean,
next one.
That's also cringy. Yes, I sent you the next one, Chad.
I can't wait
All
because
right.
like I said this. Okay, another one on the button because my criteria were 3 cars. I'm not going to say them all, but it was S550 Mustang, ATS-V. This one, I believe, I forgot if this one might even be near your area, so I guarantee you've already seen this one. But it does check the boxes. It's an ATS-V. It is a manual, and we all know these are awesome. Now, it's a, like, yes, it is a manual. I was like, guys, like, I did look that far in this one.
No,
some of these companies disguise the automatics very
Everybody
well.
that says it's a manual, you have to click through until you see, because
I don't believe it. I don't believe it until I. There are some. So there's this one dealer that I came across in my search for vehicles that every car they had a picture of the pedal box, like just to prove manual automatic.
Good.
I was like, I like that deal.
Good. That's the way to do it.
Yes, I mean, we talked about it last week, and I think Vic mentioned it in chat.
Yeah.
I loved these things since they were new, and the reason I loved them was because at the time I was driving a Lexus IS300. I have a real soft spot for sports sedans and super sports sedans, which I classify M3s, C63 AMGs, Audi RS4s. That's all that sort of stuff lumped in. Because they do pretty much everything the average enthusiast is going to need them to do. A comfortable daily, check. A great interior, great infotainment system, all the things you want in that infotainment system. And when it comes time to have fun, they have enough snot, they have enough braking, they have enough handling to get the job done. It is literally that one size fits all kind of a vehicle. And there's usually a good aftermarket community because they're performance oriented and it leads to enthusiasts. And at the time, I remember like BMW was on top with the M3, and then the RS4. I've always loved the way those look. I'm always terrified of Audi electronics, and then there was the C63 AMG, and that was like, wow, this thing sounds incredible. It's got a big V8. It's awesome. It's not a manual, and then the ISF came around, and it was a little heavy, and the way they were tuning the early 2 URs was they were very peaky with torque and horsepower. So you had to wring its neck to get that sort of thrust mode engaged. And then comes along Cadillac, American car company. We're taking on the Europe's elite, and we are winning or coming damn close, which to me, as an enthusiast and someone who can't leave a car stock by just default, I can make this faster than an M3, and by all accounts, everyone who drove one of these loved the handling.
Right.
And it just sort of ticks all of those boxes. My only complaint with this car ever, and it's not really a complaint as a missed opportunity, is the fact that this should have just come with the base Camaro SS, I think it was LS3, and because it's an alpha platform car, so it could fit relatively easily. They could have made a steering system work. Like, all of the parts were there, and it was American, and we are the V8 country. And I think if it had an LS, it would have become an all-timer, just especially here. Is that a reason not to buy this car? No. Not even.
I don't disagree with that, but I think they probably kept that out of this just because of the CTSV. They wanted to keep the CTSV having the V8, and this being sort of like the V8 light and having a V6.
And like we've already talked, well, you haven't said it exactly, but you've alluded to it. This is the American M4, especially when it came out. I mean, obviously, sales, brand recognition, yada yada, didn't exactly pan out for them, but it was universally regarded as a good car, besting the old regime that used to rule the roost on everything there. But it's also why you have your eye on it. We know that as enthusiasts, and because of their fall from their original MSRP, through no fault of their own, they're a good car. They just, were kind of this weird one-off thing that nobody, unfortunately, really shelled out for, because a lot of people who can afford them new. This happens a lot. Are like, yeah, why would I want that?
Yeah.
And then it has to get to this point where the people who do love it and want it can now afford it. It's a great car. I mean, like I said, you've got your sights set on one for a reason.
This is a really good shout, because as someone who's driven basically every car that Chad mentioned for this thing, this is the best handling car out of the bunch, and it's not really even close. The M3 definitely, from the E90 platform or the E9X platform to the F80 platform, it definitely got less sharp. It definitely got softer. They fixed that, I'd say, in the later models, in like the 2017 plus. I feel like they did dial it in a bit, especially with the different versions of like the CS and the Comp and things like that. But the if you're talking like initial offerings, the initial offering of the F80 M3 was definitely not as good as this. And I'd even say that this is still better than all of the F80 M3s. The E63s were basically just German muscle cars, essentially.
Which was cool, but
yeah,
not
definitely very cool. But they didn't handle like this thing did.
No, and
neither did the Audi. And Audi is usually in that conversation of just a little bit better than Mercedes, but maybe in some cases better than BMW in some models, but. That one also still, again, drove it. Same thing. This thing it's not even close compared to those other three. This platform, and specifically this car, I drove the other three on the same day I drove this. I don't remember driving the other three. I remember driving this. I remember driving this at Bear Mountain, up Canyon Road, or not Canyon Roads, but mountain roads. I remember driving this at test days on Monticello, as well as in the back roads of New York. The way this thing handles it is very difficult to put into words just how good it is. And it's weird to say that about like a Caddy, because a lot of people still think Caddy is like the wafty brand. But
right, the general
this thing is disgustingly good at handling, and it has to. I feel like there still hasn't been in the 2010s in this category, there isn't a car that has as good a chassis dynamics as this thing does. I really don't think so.
Oh, and like I said, this is why it's already an established thing for those just joining. One of the criteria of this beautifully curated list, if I do say so myself, was one of these cars. Here's what I'm looking at. And you gave me 3 cars. This was one of them. And obviously, this one kind of checks all the boxes. It's in the price range. I think it's decently low mileage, 48,000.
Yeah.
And, it's awesome.
It's up there, 100%. So like, and like I have nothing negative to say about these, because again, it is a car that I've always wanted and everything like that. It's
have you looked at this listing? Because I just want to know for how much you've been looking. Has this one crossed your path?
No, so I'll give you an idea.
So I'm impressed with that. I was like, this might be one that he's definitely seen.
No, there's been a decent amount of so I was going. So just to give you a rough history of my looking, I was like, maybe I want to go like something different. You know, I've always wanted ATSVs. Let me look at that. Ooh, they're in the price ballpark. Because I'm me, let me go and look at what it is to mod them. Oh shoot, this company that seems very reputable and people have nothing but nice things to say about, and it's come from multiple sources. A $5,000 kit can bring you to 550 wheel horsepower in one of these things. Okay,
which would be nutty.
Like, you know, and we all know, everybody, I don't care who you are, everybody loves turbo noises. Everybody.
Yes.
They're great and everything. So it's like, this kind of ticks all the boxes. And then like, and I think I mentioned this last week or 2 weeks ago, or even in our chat or our whatever, is that I have ADD with this stuff, and that it's like, ooh, ATSV. Wait a minute, let me check. Ooh, Grand Sport Corvette. Ooh, C7 Corvettes Stingrays are in this price point. Ooh, Lexus RCF. Ooh, back to S550 Mustang. And then like at some point,
a plastic bag.
It's like, ooh, squirrel. But like, and it's, and then like, then the voice of reason and I don't even want to call it reason, because I honestly think if I was to go with this or something else on this list that isn't a Mustang, it wouldn't be the illogical or the dumb decision to make or irresponsible decision to make. But there is a big catch-all, like we talked about when the Mustang popped up, is that I have a 705 wheel horsepower kit for that car, basically. Like,
that is pretty tempting.
Let's just, when I'm looking at everything else, it's like, let's look at all of this. It's like, yes, I plan on selling a lot of stuff off of that car, but I can also use a lot of stuff on that car and don't have to go through the hassle of selling as much. Like, you see what I'm saying there?
So yes, I do see what you're saying. One of the things that I would say as a fellow enthusiast, I think we've all been there. At least I have. Given facing this same music that you are, my tendency, it's difficult because you're as much of a Ford guy as I am, like a Corvette guy. So you could make this a different experience. I think it's one of those things where like you're kind of presented with an opportunity to kind of go a different direction. Mm-hmm. Like people are always like, well, aren't you going to get another Hellcat? And I'm like, no, because I loved mine and I like the memory that I have and I'd like it to kind of stay right there. I kind of don't want to revisit that car again, but like looser or, even different at all. It's like I kind of like where it is, like I said, I know it might not be the healthiest mental opinion, but it's like, I'm like, yeah, well, why don't I try this now? I know what I like you said, it's like, well, I could do this or I could do that. And I kind of tend to going, well, I kind of want to go down this path because I might become, a fill in the blank guy. You would essentially, if you just took every salvageable part off of your Mustang and put it onto another one, no, it would not be the same car, but you would be in essence, creating kind of somewhere where you've already been.
And that's always been part of it. It's like, it's kind of the been there, done that. But I 100% agree with that. There's two parts of that. And again, I'm not saying
there's nothing wrong with being there and doing that.
The ATSV is 100% on my radar list of cars. The thing with the Mustang that always kind of, the biggest thing that irked me about this whole situation, and believe it or not, it's, there's the obvious: insurance companies, financing a new vehicle, missing out on that opportunity to not have a car payment come December, like all those little things. The thing that irked me more as the car guy enthusiast side of me was that Mustang was unfinished, in my opinion. I never got to finish the vision. I have been sitting on a carbon fiber roof for that thing for 2 years. Almost 2 years, I should say. It's like, and if I were to go S550 route again, it would give me an opportunity to do it better and sort of not to sound like, not to sound like Cody Rhodes if anyone watches WWE, but to sort of finish the story, so to speak, because there is a sentimental value to that Mustang that I don't think a lot of people have. Well, a lot of people here do realize it, but it's not what a lot of people would have when they're looking at an X car. And that car was Project 412. 412 is my father's birthday. I would not be a car enthusiast without my father. So there's a large part of me that wants to see that through. And again, before we move on, I am not discounting. Greg will tell you point blank, he sent me a car that was very much not a Mustang. And to such a point that I thought you were holding him hostage over this one. And I'm very very intrigued by it because it's another car that I have always wanted. It offers another opportunity to drive something different, new, to check off that, okay, I had the Mustang, check. I had a 705 horsepower Mustang, check. Most people don't, like I said last week, most people don't even get the opportunity. Was it last week or the week? Whatever. Most people don't get the opportunity to buy what they would consider to be a dream car. Then even fewer people who get to do the dream build. Right? So I consider myself extremely lucky. So that's where my brain ping pongs. It's like something new, cross something else off my list. I know for a fact my dad would probably be in the same camp as you. It's like, you've been there, you've done that. Here's another car. He was the same way. He had a Mustang, he had a Corvette, and then he basically built a VW Beetle from scratch. Obviously, he didn't make all the panels, but he literally went to junkyards and built a fully functional, working perfectly old air-cooled Beetle out of like 3 or 4 other Beetles. Like, because he could have gotten a fuel efficient car, but he didn't. Well, he did, but he basically built it. Like, that was the experience in there. So, like,
right.
It's one of those things where it's really hard for me to. I've sort of narrowed in on a vehicle, and then, like I said, Greg sends me something, and it's like, squirrel.
Right.
You know, like.
Speaking of that, let's go, Elliot.
Up.
You finish up with your thought, and then we're moving on to the next one.
No,
So
the
we can
is,
squirrel
just
these.
To wrap it up, and I was thinking of it while you're saying it, and I totally get it. It's almost because they're not humans, so it's not the quite thing. But what you're kind of alluding to is you'd like closure with that dream. And that makes total sense. With that being said, I will say the one that we opened up with is not the only staying on this list. But
I had a feeling.
It just was certainly the most.
I had a feeling that there would
vanilla.
There might be more than one. It was vanilla.
There will be.
There are more. I'm going to send you one of the others, and then we're going to go to another Mustang. A little foreshadowing. So, with that said,
like I said, this is a surprise order for me as well. I mean, I know that's what's on the list, but the order, I have no idea.
I wanted to kind of like mix it up just so it wasn't just in order from what you said, because then it's just like, oh, I'll just go through your categories.
Right, for sure.
I should have. There should be like lead-in music, like almost like when the guy's getting ready to answer the question on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Like Wayne's World dream sequence. So this one's interesting, and you guys both mentioned it because you both, well, Elliot, you're a Maserati guy, and Chad likes the new MC20. So why not talk about a Maserati?
So listen, before I know this might have elicited an audible laugh, then I might have put this last for a reason. The reason I want to say this is join me.
I knew that was going to be it.
This is your opportunity to get a Grand Sport. It's a coupe. No, it's not a manual, but it is like the coolest version of these cars. Still well within your budget. Leaves you room for repairs. There are mods for these.
Because you have to. You can't own this without having room for repairs.
But they really are. I mean, like I said, I know I'm way biased on this, but it's hard to find a cooler sounding car for this price that gives you a cool badge and all the other stuff. And like I said, this is the Grand Sport, so this is as good as this particular platform ever got. Like I said, I've always hilariously thought that the difference in horsepower between this and the one that I have, just the Coupe GT, you'd think, well, we're going to make a Z06 version of this thing. It's going to have a lot more horsepower. It was 5. Was the increase in horsepower, which is such a laughable amount for the special edition. They're like, and this time, for your extra money, it's going to have 5 additional horsepower. You're like, you can do that. It is such a nonsense number.
The butt dyno really can tell.
Yeah, and like I said, I did a video driving mine and a Grand Sport back to back, and I was like, I really, in all honesty, cannot say I feel that extra 5. But I'm just saying, I know this is an absolute no. But you haven't been there before. It is cool. And I'm telling you, they're a lot of fun to throw around. And believe it or not, despite their reputation, pretty reliable if maintained.
That was going to be my biggest question. Like, how is yours on reliability? Because obviously it's a Maserati, and
it's a Maserati with a cross-plane crank, though. I mean, it's the Ferrari, whatever
M149.
Yeah, it's like F1 some crap, whatever engine. I know everyone's gonna be like, you don't even know. It's like, no, I don't know right now. But it's that with the cross-plane thing, so it'll sound more American, which is more, I guess, all of our style. It doesn't sound like, a high-pitched, stringy V8. This thing it still sounds like a muscle car. It just revs to all hell. I mean, it's like still like 8,500 RPM, and it sounds like it's just absolutely screaming. I haven't had any reliability issues. The reliability problems on these cars are almost Volvo-esque in the way where it's like, oh, well, your Skyhook suspension might have a problem, and it's not the suspension itself; it's the sensors and. There's this and that. It's like, well, the heater core might get clogged. It's like very odd, things like that. It's never like, oh yeah, these have rod bearing issues and, stuff like that. We all know
right
what I'm talking about there. It's not like there's none of this engine out stuff. They are cars that maintained can go, 6-figure mileage, which is, things you don't see Ferraris doing all that often. Or
True.
So I have
mostly because of the ownership there. But, like I said, I think that I know it's not going to be seriously considered, but I do really think it's one of those, you haven't necessarily been there.
They are
it's
cool,
a ton of fun.
I gotta say. They are very cool.
So and like I said, this one's a grand sport. It's not just a regular.
Right.
Ass,
this is the good one.
This is the Z06 of Maseratis.
So, Chad, what do you think?
And it does have Brembo brakes before you even ask. So.
Oh yeah, you noticed the special performance package on this before you look at the Mustang, but
well, it's because I already know there was like no options on this. So you get the Grand Sport.
So
this is the option. You buy the Grand Sport.
Right.
Here's the thing. You're not crazy as far off as you think.
I'm surprised to hear you say that, but go on.
Yeah, me too, actually. Very much so.
So this car has one massive Gran Turismo-sized problem. And that is Gran Turismos are approaching $40,000 now. Some of them even less.
Yes.
And in my extremely humble but correct opinion, magnitude's better looking. And I'm not saying that to kind of shit on your car or what have you.
No, you're correct. And I do have one caveat to that after you're done.
And so the idea of a Maserati Grand Tourer, effectively, you were close. My thing is that look, I get it as an out of there, it's an oddball kind of thing. I have gone down the rabbit hole of like I've liked the Gran Turismos for a minute. So like all of the cars I've liked for a minute. When I was like, let me check this out. And then I do things like, what's the annual maintenance on one of these? Where the crap am I getting this serviced? Where's do I have access to an Elliott Alvis to fix this for me? No, I don't. Okay.
Right.
So it's like, as cool as these cars are, and the Grand Sport is a very cool car because it's an Italian Grand Tourer with a Ferrari-based V8 that I believe this version of that V8, if you've ever watched the Jason, I think it's on Haggerty, when Jason Camisa did the 4-door, the Quadruporte.
Yes, it's the same.
Yep.
He closes that video out with saying that they did a test and then they measured hormones or whatever stuff in like saliva that they can get an indication for the arousal of the test subjects, and that the cross-plane Maserati V8 and it was men and women or what have you, it created arousal in every single test subject significantly more than, I forget what, there was one other car, and then there was an F430 or what have you that had the flat plane version of this. So it's like, it's a really cool engine that sounds epic. It's like,
you make a good point, and that's why I never drive mine on a first date, because it's just not fair.
well,
So I just, like, I don't want to be like, is this like a pheromones type situation going on? Or...
I mean, some might say that just, hi, my name is Elliot is unfair enough. So,
oh, well.
If she doesn't love you at your V70R, she won't love you at your Maserati.
That's what I'm saying. That's very true.
I would argue that those are two very different types of women. Just saying.
That's what I'm saying. You got to roll in with the V70R, and if she's like, "Oh man, I love you for who you are," and then you bust out the Maserati,
and then you're like, "Did you know that
like,
I have science backing me? Are you ready for this?" And then I just start it up, and they're like, "Okay."
Are you ready to be aroused?
Even for a girl who normally, in all honesty, most of the time I've been in the Maserati is, why is this so loud? Is usually.
Yeah,
the thing. And it's like, because it's awesome.
Elliot's at the house.
Why are you so loud? Shut up so I can hear the car.
Elliot's at the house. The kids are away at like summer camp or something like that. Wife's giving him the eye. He's like, let me go set the mood. And just lets it running in the garage.
Exactly.
Yep. Look, I like oddball stuff like this because I love the not the thought experiment, but the would I be ballsy enough to own something like this? And as much as that, even if you look at like the Gran Turismo, it's like man, that looks good. That is going to get a lot of like. It's going to have a very similar thing to the V8 Vantage.
Yes.
In that at 2 miles an hour, it's going to be fun just because of just how people are like, hold
2
on,
miles an hour. So
Right.
So it's like it has a lot of that going for it. It's just, man,
Yeah.
I'm gonna wuss out. I don't have anywhere near the stones to be like, boutique, small production run, Italian car.
Yes. But that's why I left it with some budget in there. You've got some
That's right.
something
Yes.
to play with. Now, may I also say, so you're absolutely right. I think the Gran Turismo is a better looking car. I think we can all agree with that. It's wider, flatter. It's a better looking modern car. The only other thing that I like, not the only other thing, there's only one version of the Gran Turismo for a limited production run that you can get the same transmission that this car has in it. And I think it makes all the difference in the world of owning an exotic versus what Maserati is today, other than the MC20. Is that when you go to the Gran Turismo, generally 99% of them have the ZF automatic. Good transmission. But I think it makes it feel way cooler to have kind of the last best version of the single clutch F1. And the Grand Sport, in this case, got a way better tuned version of it than in the what they call the Cambia Corsa model. And there's a way to get it in early, I believe it's 2 years, people can correct me if I'm wrong. There's a couple of years of Gran Turismo where you can get the F1, but it has to be a Gran Turismo S. And you can always tell because it has two huge paddles and it doesn't have, a traditional shifter in there. So if you could, that's obviously the best of both worlds, in my opinion. If you can get a Gran Turismo S with the single clutch, that is the best looking, authentic, supercar-ish Maserati experience you can get. But those are kind of hard to find.
Sure.
This, you're guaranteed to have that thing. And I'm telling you, there's a sense of drama, a sense of occasion, dealing with the single clutch cars. And like I said, with the Grand Sport, the tuning on the single clutch is so much better that it really is. It's not a pain to live with or to even daily if you wanted, as long as, as soon as you figure out the ins and outs of how that thing kind of what it wants, they're great. And like I said, I think it adds a sense of occasion to a car that might not, well, it's not like it doesn't have any, but it adds more of a sense of occasion to it than the ZF does in the Gran Turismo.
Right. It makes it a little bit more exotic, if you will.
Right.
Interesting that this one wasn't as far off as Chad thought. I'm sending another one right now for the next one.
Yeah, I thought this was going to be an absolute no. I was just...
Yeah, I thought so too. But I think this one's going to be an absolute no. But, as I said, this is going to be a Ford Mustang. I'm very excited to hear Chad's opinion
I know.
on this.
No.
Well, Chad, so look, do judge the book by its cover. But
Wait,
through some
you
just like I
started
said,
with
hear me out.
So look, that's not a good start.
Just listen.
Or when it's like,
Okay, I
hear
got
me out.
songs. You got
So
tunes.
look, hear me out. I love
Keep
I
going.
love the beginning.
Why does
Keep
it have a
in mind-
Transformers
keep in mind-
tachometer
Keep in mind,
and a steering wheel?
We are at less than half the budget. Okay, so bear that in mind. Okay, keep going. Yeah, it's got a big old Kenny Bell on top.
Yeah, it is actually pretty sick. The engine
And
bay
then
is like,
you scroll down.
okay,
It
this is
says
interesting now.
says the wheel horsepower in the description. Okay, that is ridiculous. The Autobots rollout thing on that, I did see that. But again, everybody,
Autobots,
keep in mind,
roll out.
we are at wait, where does it say? It says, 620 horsepower right there already. Now I know your parts aren't going to transfer right over, and I know it needs some stuff.
Chad, you can sell your parts and get this.
But Chad, you could throw so much at it. If talk about a car you could daily, probably if it runs. You don't really have to worry about.
Ringing
Still
endorsement.
big horsepower.
You could daily this, maybe.
They didn't.
You might want to buy it, probably.
Like I said,
I love this
really
choice.
do
This
think
is
it's
great.
worth noting. We are at less than half the budget. You got a lot of money to do whatever you wanted to this thing.
Yes.
Right.
And
I love
it
this
still
suggestion, honestly.
checks the box of being a Mustang, and it already has a power adder. So you know,
Custom transmission, no details. Custom clutch, no part. Custom suspension.
Custom
clutch.
in this
His
case
buddy,
just means that
hand
he
built.
found it.
He hand wove.
Custom transmission, as in the owner deleted a gear, not by choice.
I
But
fucking
it's got
love
subs.
this.
We were talking about, audio systems earlier. You're not going to get necessarily a huge screen, but you could bump
Okay.
tunes. No one will have one like it.
Look, let me put it to you this way: if
People
we were
will
a
fear you at a
teensy
Cars
weensy,
and Coffee.
yes, and then they'll see me and I'll be asked to leave.
That's if you pull up to a school or a playground.
I'm gonna have to enter every drive-through in accordance with Megan's Law, even though I've done nothing wrong. And I can almost guarantee you there's a lot of fucking dead soldiers in this thing. Here's the thing. If I try to look at it from a how many bourbons did Elliott have when he sent this over kind of perspective?
0, actually. I was like,
I'd send this over with 0 as to be like, you should definitely do this. Absolutely.
I said, there's a lot of room to play here.
Oh, I'm crying.
Yes.
This is great.
Because I saw it as this, because I didn't see anything. I saw a ratty Mustang, but I saw a little what looked like an intercooler, kind of misaligned in the front bumper there, and I was like, huh? And
this is basically
this is what happens when you
$15,500
let a
on an
Civic
engine.
owner get a Mustang.
Yes.
So here's a couple things. And again,
love this.
I know a lot of the logic and reasoning, some of it was tongue in cheek. When it comes to audio, I like stock good audio that doesn't necessarily require a subwoofer. I'm not a big sub guy.
That's not what was happening back in 06, man.
Yeah, I understand that. And
That
back
Monsoon sound system only went so far.
in 06,
Yeah,
I
Rockford
literally
Fosgate,
had
let's go.
literally had lights underneath the seats that were tied in with an 8-inch subwoofer that every time the bass hit, if I had the lights on, they would flash. I got in trouble because they happened to be
Good
blue.
system.
Hell yeah.
Not the point. 40-year-old Chad and 22-year-old Chad, slightly different. Now, I may be just as immature in a lot of ways.
We can go back though. You can what if you get that? What if the second you hear that thing hit, that you're like, oh, I'm back. And this thing could, like you said, this thing could awaken something in you.
Dude, the first thing that's happening if you buy this car, Chad, is I'm coming over with Nellie's Country Grammar, and we are literally bending the trunk with those subs, and we're just gonna be like, hot shit.
Dude, honestly,
it's gonna
that
be
alone sounds
amazing.
worth it.
So, and then trying to kind of look past many of this car's features.
The interior looks pretty clean, quite honestly.
It had racing seats. Look.
Of course it's clean. The guy went for the Optimus Prime package.
Yeah. Oh, even the steering wheel. I see that. I didn't.
It's got
And the floor mats.
The floor mats I see, but the steering wheel does crack me up.
It's got Corbo seats.
Here's the thing.
Come
I'm pretty.
on.
Hold on. Let me do this. So there's a couple things. One, like my interest in Mustangs is either like late '60s, sort of that Eleanor vibe,
Sure.
or ones with or that come like fairly easily swappable for IRS, in the sense that I like the Cobra R's both. I know the Fox body didn't come with one, but the later Cobra R and stuff, and then the S550. I love the fact that the S550 in stock GT form, or I think with the performance package actually, was still faster than the current M3 around Laguna Seca. That I've loved about it.
That is a good stat.
So these, and I'm not 100. I gotta look in it. Like so, the mod.
I thought I got him at a loss for words. I was like, this is a good one.
Which one? What's the model? It's 2006.
Yes, I do. I love this. This is the best.
I
of
really,
this.
yeah. I was not. I stand by this choice.
I mean, as one YouTuber to another, I feel like you should get it, and it would be a great content car.
It
I
would
was
honestly.
gonna say, I
like,
feel like I should buy this one.
this thing
Just,
kind of
Your
like I said,
just
it's-
for
wife
shits and
wouldn't
giggles.
let you within, wouldn't let you in the house.
Oh no, that she wouldn't know I own this. I would park it at the garage in Morristown and just bring it out for videos,
This thing
and
probably
that's
makes
it.
an absolute racket. Like, there's
Oh,
no
totally.
way.
So there's a couple.
There
and
is
then
no nice.
Lastly,
There's
this
zero
generation-
nice neighbor mode with this thing.
The last thing with these is,
Look at that.
I mean, done nice, this would look badass. However, this car has a 3-valve, and mod motors in general have 9,000 different ways to modify them reliably. It's like everybody has their own. It's like your grandma's spaghetti sauce
That
recipe.
sounds good. It's like a choose your own adventure.
But of all the mod motors, the 3-valve is the one that most people hate the most.
Elliot, I love how hard you're trying to sell this. It's so good. You're like, it's every like sales like, but come on, this is right up your alley. Like,
No, I mean, like, look at that. Dude.
I'm loving
Tell all
this
your
so
friends
much.
This
that
is
in the
what
rearview
happens
mirror.
when you tell AI to do something, and the AI spits it out. It's like, you said you liked Mustangs, right? Look,
Come on. Well,
look,
I don't know if
God,
that's a
it's
compliment
so
that I
good.
did just as good as AI.
wasn't intended that way.
No, I know.
Um,
Just kidding. No, this had thought.
Here's the thing.
Chat
As
ELIOTT.
a thing of interest, as a thing of, hey, the internet kind of loves this crap. I get it. It would be
Yeah.
one of those things that I'm like, if I had, say, my old Mustang and it was effectively done for the time,
You get one of these for the shits and gigs.
for the fun of it,
Yes.
because
Yes.
with my car, I'm afraid of doing something wrong because of the level that it's at. This, it's like,
Yeah.
oh,
Just go to town.
oh no, I scratched the paint.
That's what I'm saying. You can take this thing to Walmart, dude. Park it right next to the cart corral. It doesn't matter.
You can park it in
I mean,
the car
100%.
corral.
As far as
this would be
daily
like-
drivers go. It's
Okay.
actually pretty great.
I mean, not for nothing, this would be the, okay, I'm a Mustang guy. People know me as a Mustang guy. I'm labeled a Ford guy, even though, yes, I will sing the praises of one specific version of a Ford. But like this, I mean, this is the slightly inbred, the 3-valve is the slightly inbred, not all there cousin to the Coyote. I don't like them at all. like, so
Well,
I would get this. I would get this, and then go to a Cletus and Cars and enter the burnout competition with this.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, and it'd be perfect for it.
This
And I
would
wouldn't care
wreck
if I broke
that.
something because I could go find another 3-valve for next to nothing. As
Okay,
far
you're,
as it
you're
did,
making my point of why this would make a good daily.
well,
So-
you didn't let me get to what as a daily driver, as someone who doesn't want to drive by every person on the road like this. Look, these things were really cool. I love the big supercharger. I love the power, even though I'm like 99.9999999% sure the person who listed this is lying straight through their teeth.
Right. It was a very specific number, though. I mean, at least he given that.
Yes.
Yeah, which he could have pulled off a form off of someone who has a built motor.
But he didn't just go with the blanket like he's 16. Like he was like, it's 1,000. Like he could have said
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
anybody puts a Kenny Bell on something, they're like, I have 1,000 horsepower. No, it's not.
621 is a very oddly specific number. That's true.
Right, like
But
someone
then
with
again,
this
he's right,
with this
custom
package
collection.
has done
Yeah.
it. But I know for a fact that a stock 3-valve is not doing that. So either this is built and this person like doesn't quite understand the art of marketing or even the common basics of it.
Well, that's why all the pictures of it are at street parked in a neighborhood and it's on eBay.
I mean,
Yep. I love this pick. So thank you for finding it. But
all right,
now,
guys, let's get Greg to get this car. So I honestly think
Yes.
Greg should get this car.
I'm very
Do have to start the mods, then we ship it to Kansas and Elliott finishes it.
Yes. This is our
Yes.
this is our co-owned car, guys.
Yeah.
It's joint custody, as it were. Elliott gets
And,
it on every
just-
other weekend in alternating holidays.
Yes.
Yeah. And just to complete the old school car forum transition, group buy.
Group buy.
So yeah, I think that's what we're going for here. So with that said, we're gonna do a lightning round of the rest of the Mustangs that you sent over, just to kind of
Yes.
like
Because,
parse through them
yeah,
because we
it's
have
Mustang,
a whole
Mustang,
bunch more to
Mustang.
get through.
Yeah.
So
But I
here is
know
the
that
next
they're
one
like
in the
these
list,
other ones-
Chad.
Yeah, go ahead. The other ones
Yeah.
I just know I had a good feeling that he had not seen these. I've got this feeling that Chad's perused a lot of these.
Yes.
But some of them I wanted to be like,
You were not wrong.
maybe that one. Yeah.
So we have another S550.
Okay. Now, to start out with this one, I already know this one's a base car. I knew that you could see it from a mile away. The reason I liked it is because we're well within budget, like to the point where you've got a pretty good open canvas, especially with transferable parts.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I love that color.
We've kind of expanded on that earlier with the first one. But I knew that I kind of thought the first one was a performance pack because I didn't click in the screen picture. I knew this one was a base from the get-go, and I was like, but imagine the potential of being able to throw even more money at a base car. That was my thought process behind this selection.
No, and it makes a ton of sense, and it does actually have
It does have the big screen.
Yeah.
So, like, I've looked at a few cars. Like, I sent you a car last night when we were talking about a potential thing that wasn't going to that's not going to happen because the car's sold. Because anything I'm interested in, so is the rest of the internet, apparently. No, this is one of those things that's a great start because it's actually not a base car. This is a premium.
Yeah, it's premium, not performance pack, is what I.
Right. The guy spent all his could either afford a car or New Balances, but not both. Look, I've looked at a lot of stuff like this. Obviously, it's a known platform. Obviously, I know literally every single thing will just bolt right over. So it's a lot of the concerns of it. So here's why performance package became a thing. Other than the reasons I listed before. Performance package became a thing because I gotta pay someone to transfer the stuff over. And that inherently comes with a cost. Or I could buy a car with it already that's a little bit more, if that makes any sense, right?
Right.
And then the stuff on my car then comes back. Like those performance brakes as they sit, that's like looking at a stack of $500 to $800, right? So like part of me likes the idea of going that route. And like I said, there was one car that I was looking at that had so much other stuff going for it that it had the cloth seats. It had the big screen infotainment, but it had the cloth seats. I don't care. I have 2 Recaros and a rear seat that bolt right in, right? Like that sort of stuff. Since we're kind of going lightning round, I will say that not this specific car because I haven't gotten as far as Wenatchee, Washington. Usually the Mississippi or in like the last few days, Kansas have been.
I know. Like I said, I went with hopefully listings you hadn't looked at.
Yeah.
And I know there's nothing particularly special about this one. It was the concept, I guess.
Yeah, no, and I totally get that. And that is a concept I have 100% thought about and considered, and for the right price. Like, I've seen some versions like this going for 26, 27. And then it's like, okay, I'm saving so much that it's kind of a no-brainer, right?
Right.
And more than likely, cars without the performance package haven't been beaten to high or driven in a enthusiastic manner as much because they're the GT car. They're kind of in that old muscle car vibe. And that's the type of owner. But yeah, 100% something I've considered. What do we have next? Son of the Gregs.
Next one. Go for that. I will be right back. But this one is actually one that Elliott had on my list that was surprising and has sort of eked its way onto things that I'm looking at. So, Elliott, take it away. I'll be right back.
No, so I know this is not S550.
I was expecting you to have one of these on there.
I know. And I would have. I know that it's a convertible, which is probably not on the list, but this thing's low mileage. It's already, the mod list is there. I do, like I said, like these. Apparently, if I've curated 2 lists for you guys and I've come up with 2 of these, but this one was obviously got one of those boomer level collector owned based on the tag, everything else. I know you've probably got a million things to say about this motor too, but the mod capability is there. I obviously, as an enthusiast, kind of like the convertible thing. I think it's nuts they made a convertible version of this car, with the live axle and everything else.
Now, these were what, 550? from factory or something like that.
Yes, something like that. Yeah, because it's an earlier
Yeah.
example.
You can tell just it kind of dates itself by the wheel size.
Right. But it checks a lot of the boxes. It's within budget with room for mods.
Right.
And like I said, it definitely is still reliable, cool, definitely dailyable. I had a buddy who dailied a GT500 coupe for years. You know, like I said, I'm not the Mustang guru that you are. I've only had one in my life. So I just think that these are still cool. Obviously something you weren't searching for, and being one of those, well, oh, hey, if one of these is in the price range, I mean,
yes,
it's going to be special because it was born a Shelby, you know, like it's going to stay.
Right.
I know that.
And it's one of the Shelbys that Shelby had a hand in, or at least
right, and that's what I'm saying.
Was in the room.
So like, yeah, so this is one of those cars that I know that resale value wasn't a prerequisite, but
I like
this
knowing
is one
that
that's like, it's going to stay special even if you do mod it. At least at the core of its life, it was a Shelby when you started.
Right. And like, not for nothing, with stuff like this, so I would do mostly reversible mods. Now, that's not to say that apart from cutting the hole in the second skin of the hood on my car to make room for the supercharger, every mod I did on that car is technically reversible. I would argue that if you took away the supercharger and the oil pump gears, crank sprocket, and built trans, to anyone who knows those cars knows the value that stuff adds. As far as
honestly, even the chat is agreeing with me about the convertible part. I'm surprised. Happy to hear Doug and Mark both saying open top, pretty cool. I really haven't seen an open top GT500 in person in a long time.
I don't think I've ever seen an open top GT500. Honestly,
like I said,
I think it's probably one of the first ones.
If I'm ever in like the thing, it's one of those things. Like, I'm not a Ford guy, and I mean, I would own one of these. Like, it's one of those things where you're like, this is kind of one of those you could point to and be like, isn't this nuts that they made this thing? This wasn't already. It's almost like the as a GM guy, and I'm going to say this as honest, it's like the F bodies and stuff like that. They should have never made that a convertible. It's a floppy coupe, and then you took the roof off. You know, like, and then this one, it's like, it's a kind of floppy-ish thing already, and now it's got 550 horsepower and still a solid rear and like very rudimentary everything else.
It's
like,
very muscle car. You would awesome. See, it is almost a modern-ish, because it is kind of old at this point, but it's almost 20 years in a few years.
It's still a modern car.
It's still a modern take on that old muscle car. That, not a cruiser, because these things are fast. Objectively speaking. I did actually look at this generation Shelby. I did look at the next generation Shelby. And to Andrew's point in chat, I even looked at like the Boss 302.
Right. And I did want to put a Terminator on here, but I know what's, again, been there, done that kind of thing.
Well, I like the Terminator cars.
Here's the Terminator, I did, because they do have IRS, so there's
yes. That. No, I like I said, I love those. I really, really, really like those cars. I like this car. For me, I would look at these in coupe form, because chat will tell you, Greg will tell you, I'm not a convertible guy. I'm not like, the only kind of convertibles that I would even consider or kind of mess with are Targas. I know I will never, ever come close to ever feeling the difference between a drop top and a coupe as far as chassis rigidity, as far as in a performance aspect, driving it, if it's the right convertible, right? Like, to your point.
I know, you don't want your hair getting in your face. I totally.
I mean, I don't have much of it anymore, but
no problems here.
Yeah.
Greg is definitely the more aerodynamic of the two of us. It really came down to why, like, these things are like, man, I lusted after these when I was a kid. I wanted one when I was a kid.
They're very cool.
Like, they're super cool. I mean, like we talked about when you brought this up with Greg, without this and the next generation GT500, we probably don't end up with the Hellcat. We don't end up with the current GT500, or maybe we do. Ford's just like, all right, we're just going to move the goalpost so far down the road that nobody's going to even try to touch us. But like the thing is I keep coming back.
This is an interesting.
At least I had the decency to put a coupe for Greg's. But
I mean,
thought
that was a little
interesting.
disheartening.
And honestly,
that you knew Greg
I
better
believe
than
the
me.
convertibles are cheaper.
They are, yeah.
In this mileage range.
Right. I think
Yeah,
a lot
they
of
are.
it is that a lot. I think, and I'm not saying to make me sound right, other than me saying it just as a theory, but I think in theory a lot of people liked the Shelby coupes because of what Shelby represents over convertibles.
Well, it
a
also
little more.
looks like those with the fastback when this body style came out, it was the best. It still was up until it kept changing and changing. It was the best looking of the retro coupes. Obviously, the 2010 Camaro, very very good. But
Challenger
nothing
still very
beats
good,
the
but,
05 Mustang coupe.
It's
You know,
this,
you're like,
it's what
wow.
started the
Yeah, I
trend,
was gonna
right?
say.
It's
Exactly. That was like
This
the
was it,
perfect retro callback
I
to
think
one of the most iconic
and
cars of all
When
time.
when did this Mustang come out? It was like 05, 06, right?
So 05 was the first year of this body style. I don't think GT500s came out until 06 or 07.
Yeah, I specifically I meant like the retro style.
The
I
retro
remember
kicked off with 05 Mustang.
Isn't
And then
this
that
a
I
variation?
remember when this came out, people were like over the moon because they were
it
like,
changed the
wow,
game.
this really harkens back to the old, 60s era Mustangs, but modernized, and it was like, it's still a cool car, honestly. Like, and it still looks retro futuristic in a way. It is a really cool looking design practice. It really
I like
is.
it. And as much as I like the S550, it got away from that. Obviously, it had to make an evolution. I get it.
It was,
but there is something to be said, like, because I think we were all ish the same age and being influenced by cars in the same way that when the 05 Mustang came out, it was like, that's so cool. And I mean, as a GM fanboy, look, it took us another 5 years to come out with the same kind of like, be like, hey, here's our version of our most popular car.
Well, 5 years in automotive terms is
a
holy
lifetime.
Holy crap! They did this. I think we can do this and bring the Camaro back. And like that was.
I remember when the 05 GT came out, because the only thing you could compare it to was the 05 GTO. Obviously, the GTO, independent rear, LS, all that stuff, like it kind of beat it in a lot of aspects. But at the end of the day, it looked like a Bonneville. The 05 Mustang had this coolness factor that you couldn't even touch.
Yeah. Totally different.
It was a
totally
very interesting time. And like I said, and then obviously Camaros were very, very popular. When the 2010 came out, it was a revival of that whole like, oh my God, they can do that kind of thing. Because Dodge kind of screwed it up, not to touch on an old cast, but I mean, they brought the Charger back out in, 04 or whatever as a weird blobby sedan. Everyone's like, the hell is this?
Well, as I think we've discussed at length on this stream, Dodge doesn't know what
bring it back up, but I mean,
Dodge doesn't know what they're doing with the Charger. They don't understand that name. And we'll leave it there.
So like I said, there was like, then all of a sudden Mustang was like, check out what we can do. And then GM
honestly
figured it out eventually. And they did. They rode that train. I mean, like I said, they got further and further away from it. And honestly, Camaros did too. I mean, like a 6th-gen Camaro does not look, very different than a 2010 was the most, Transformers Bumblebee concept car. You're like, oh man, it looks exactly like a 69. But if you designed one today, like, it's really cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's
so. Just kind of final thoughts on this, right? Like, I like these. I like what once I learned what the S550 was, and more importantly, the engine in it, it became almost that. To use kind of like an auction example, it takes a regular Plymouth, and it almost is it makes it the Hemi version to me, if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense.
Yeah,
totally.
So
and
like,
it is. It's a lifetime different than this car.
So it's
in a few years.
It's one of those things where, all right, I could spend like $35,000, or what was this listed at? $34,000, right? It has low mileage. This thing is probably a slightly smarter investment in a sense, in that it might not appreciate like crazy, but it's, like you said, not going to lose money, really.
Right. It was born special. Yeah.
Right.
So, but look, it's another one of those cars that I've thought about, and I would, again, one of those things where it's, if given one, hell yeah, we're riding. As far as something as my next car, it's like, I just like other variants better. And that's kind of it.
I totally understand. Like I said, I did not think this was going to be a life-changing example. It was just one of those, this is in the wheelhouse. It is a Mustang.
Yeah.
And it's a good
special.
one.
And I think before we move on, and again, I had given you criteria, so I'm not just saying this. As much as the Ford guy or the Mustang guy as I come across as, it's more of my, I don't even know what the best way to describe it is, but it's like, I'm into this. I have one of these. I'm going to learn everything I possibly can on this. And when you dive into that car, for me at least, we're talking my old Mustang, it's like, this just gets more and more impressive. This gets cooler and cooler. Like, wait, hold on, what? I can do this. Like that was kind of the thing there. But I will tell you straight up, I am not opposed to Corvette. I am not opposed to like the Cadillac we saw or what have you. I am by no means a Ford guy or a Ford. It's got to be a Ford car or no car. That kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Good transition, Chad, because I'm sending you the next one, which
I was going to say,
is exactly something that you just mentioned.
And I will say this while he's pulling this up. I'm by no means a Ford guy. I can't believe your background decor doesn't include a neon Ford sign. But good news. We have here an Elliott Alvis mobile, but it was on part of your criteria. A little higher mileage, but well within the budget. And I can also tell you from experience of driving, well, every single one of these ever, and even high mileage, low mileage, whatever. They are so well built and so good. Like they're tight still at this mileage. And like I said, guess what? You're not a convertible guy, but it's a Targa. I know they all are. But
like I said, I can get down with Targa because, in my opinion, so convertibles, I think, from another thing with convertibles is they always seem to like interrupt the lines of the car, whether it be.
They do. You don't have the style. No, trust me, I'm a Targa man. But the important thing about this one is those last 3 digits on the end of the listing is that for this price, it is a Z51. And the for C7, the Z51 package got you more than it ever used to. So in the past, it was like slightly bigger brakes, a little bit different than this. This got you, different exhaust completely. It actually got you more horsepower.
They really made it like a package.
Bigger brakes. But even more importantly, it got you the electronic differential.
Yeah.
So it's a huge difference on these cars. Driving a base C7, driving a Z51, it's like you do notice the kind of difference. Before, I always kind of thought it was a little negative. Like a base C6 and a base Z51 non-Grand Sport, it was like, I don't know. Obviously, everybody would always rather have the Z51, but in the C7, it made the biggest difference in the world. So for this one to be looking that good at this price and be a Z51, I think it's, I was very impressed that I was like, that's an awesome thing right there. And it's a manual. And something you haven't experienced before, 7th gear.
True.
That's true.
Which is an odd thing.
What was the old, I don't know why this popped into my head, but what was that old game you did in like high school or late middle school where it was like, what is it, 7 Minutes in Heaven? Yeah. Like that immediately popped in.
I was trying to think of things with 7 in it. I'm like, it's pretty much just that.
But
so that's what they call Corvette cruising in 7th gear on the highway, 7 minutes in heaven.
That's
so here's
true.
what we do.
It's 7 minutes in heaven, and then you're like, I got to downshift because this is way too high of a gear.
How is this somehow more than a 1-to-1 ratio?
Screw this 30 mpg crap.
It's like never. So here's the thing.
To answer Elliott Manning's comment, who I called me and Elliott in the last cast. He said, don't they have the skip to shift feature? Yes, they do. A lot of cars have it. Believe it or not, even my manual Hellcat had a skip shift feature. It's kind of an EPA thing. It's easily defeatable with a tune or a dongle, but also just applying a pinch more throttle and it goes, all right, never mind. It's this weird criteria where it literally physically locks you out of other gears. But it was never a problem. But any Corvette I've ever driven and whatever, even my C4 has 1 to 4. They call it. They don't call it skip shift. It just has this light on the dash. It goes 1 to 4, and it does it. Even in the 90s, locked you out of other gears, and then all you have to do is either accelerate a little bit or like let off, and it's like, oh, okay, whatever. So yes, it does have that, but no, I don't think it's the end of the world personally.
So 100%, like you said, this is a car was looking at. Like, I started at like C6 Grand Sports. There's some C6Zs,
Hell of a car. Yeah,
Z06s that are in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And look, can you make a Grand Sport 9.9 tenths of the Z06 as far as an experience and power and sort of all that? Yes. I love the fact that the C6 Z06 is the last last Corvette that went after the Europeans without boost. Like,
right.
Oh, you think our 6.2 liter is massive? Say hello to 7, right? Like,
Right.
I love that.
Yeah.
But as I looked at the Grand Sport, it was like, wait a minute, it's been a minute. Let me see what C7s are going for. And specifically targeting cars with the Z51. And it's like, these are in range.
Yeah, they're shockingly affordable now. I was pretty surprised when I started. I saw this and I did a quick search myself, and I'm like, okay, that's actually
the
really
C6
good.
GS I actually would prefer over the Z06. I know that sounds odd, but I like the fact that you could get one in convertible, or if you get one, it still has the wide body and all the goodies, but it's still a Targa.
And they made a crap ton of them, so you have so many parts to choose from if you need to.
They made enough of these, not very many like true Z51s, but the thing is like this launched Corvette into the modern era. C6, great. I might even prefer the way they look, but the C7 was the most transformative Corvette experience, obviously outside of the C8, because that's just an entirely different thing. But this totally was when you go, holy crap, these have gotten so good.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was fortunate enough to drive one like right when they came out. I got to see VIN number 1 sell at Bear Jackson that year and all that stuff. And I just remember they'd launched the concept, and then it was like a week later had the concept in Scottsdale, rolling it across, and I was like, this is it was like the C7 still is like just has this spot in my mind where I'm like, oh cool. I mean, even the dumb things like I love where it has the little cover, like the hood vent being functional, and it's just something so simple. It's like, well, there's hot air in the radiator. What if we just let that exit out of the hood instead of blowing it onto the engine?
Yeah.
Right. And then
vent atmosphere.
And there is an element.
I love scoops and vents. So
there is an element of.
I'm a double sucker for it.
And there is an element of that sort of thing, if done correctly, does add practical downforce. Not that you should be going the speed that it requires on a street, but
right, it's more heat soaked. It's still really cool.
Actually, I'll give you my thoughts on Corvettes as a whole, and like this one in specifically, and then I gotta step aside for 1 second. So, but what makes Corvettes highly appealing? It's like I mentioned with the Mustang before. That was kind of an homage to my father. Well, my father, he went Mustang, Corvette.
Good man.
So
knew Elliott would love that.
Yeah.
And not only did he go Mustang Corvette, but he went Mustang 59 Corvette, and this was when he was my age, like maybe a little younger than I am now, but like not as I'm gonna get a Corvette and then take it exclusively to barbecues where the same level of New Balance is required. They didn't have the same
kind of rep.
He got it. Well, not even that. Just not the age, right? The age of like I'm still young enough and don't have a family to enjoy it, as opposed to it being something I occasionally enjoy but partially a flex. And then again, that modder's spirit. That car had I forget brakes or the brakes. He got it off of one of like I think Chevy's like full size, which was bigger and whatever. He took a 327 out of Impala, had it board stroke, balance blueprinted. Transmission was beefed up. I don't know what they did to it back in the day, but like I know he mentioned that it was actually a white on red convertible, which
love it.
Admittedly,
I won't. They didn't make a coupe yet, so
Admittedly, I will not be following that trend if I were to go to a Corvette. Like, I'll be just perfectly honest. I'm not a fan of white, and convertibles bother me. Whatever. That's
Again, like
a
I said,
personal
worth mentioning,
oddity.
they didn't make a coupe yet, so it's not.
Right. But it's one of those things where it's a personal thing for me. I'm not, if you like Corvettes, like, great. Like, again, automotive enthusiasm. If you're enthusiastic about something, you should seek it out, try to obtain it, like, and do it, because that's huge. But that's part of the reason why Corvettes appeal to me. It's like I'm kind of following in his footsteps. Now, I will say this: there was then gas prices got crazy expensive. So I think this was in like the 70s, right around the gas shortage. So he had to go out and get a fuel efficient car, and that's where the aforementioned Beetle comes into the equation. I'd rather not go that as the next step, although messing with an air cooled Beetle and like making it like wicked fast or something, there's an odd appeal to that.
So I have put 0 of those on this list. Just
I kind of figured. That's kind of out of left field, even for me. And that's one of those things where it's like there's so many things I want to play with first, right? But it is one of those things that it's like, you know, what was it?
Yeah.
I forget what it was called, but it was the Beetle on Street Outlaws. It's like, you can make some reasonably good power with these things. And then Mighty Car Mods showed that you could put, you know, a less reliable Subaru engine in one. And it's like, okay, people are thinking about this stuff. So, whatever. I don't want to get sidetracked and drag it. But, like, Corvettes are very appealing. The Z51 C7s is 100% something I've looked at. And it's there. It's like the ATS-V in the sense... Not in a sense. It's like the ATS-V because, hey, if I am going to deviate, if I am going to get a vehicle and have to kind of start the modding process over, right? Meaning getting new parts, figuring out what are the good ones, all that other sort of stuff. The ATS-V and the C7 so far are the two cars where I'm like, I could do that. Or the two Corvette or the 3 Corvettes I've mentioned, right? The Grand Sport, the C6Z, and this.
Now, if I go ahead, unless you're go ahead.
So it's a good one. It's like one of those things where it's like, yes, this is in the running.
I have a enough point to make before you step away. So one, the reason that I liked this, and I'm glad you said it, is because not that I have any say in it, still a big proponent of experiencing something you haven't before, and taking a dive into that thing, like whatever it is, even if it's a normal like daily driver, like you said, you just all of a sudden start looking into those and you start noticing them more, and you go into this rabbit hole of whatever that is. That would check the box with this. Now, also, I can say with my experience with C7s and modding them is my buddy took one, had 4,000 miles on it back in 2014, 2015. He had one of the first, we pro-charged it with 4,000 miles on it. And it just kept getting crazier and crazier from there. I mean, it ended, at like almost 800 wheel, E85, meth injected, like, fucking awesome thing. And
you are allowed to swear on this stream.
He's one of us.
Sorry, just was like coming
the New Jersey potty mouth is starting to wear off on sweet innocent Kansas boy.
No,
the
I'm
F
just
word
saying
as a
from
comma.
this platform, as a guy who I know, you want to do those similar things. It was amazing to see the car and knowing it never lost any of its drivability. Especially because this is a new enough car, and following in his footsteps, I would recommend this. It's like there's simple things you can do with the adjustable exhaust in this thing. It really was 800 horsepower, and in tour, whisper quiet. But
that's crazy.
When it would come up, it scared me one time because it did this thing like they bark when they go over like 3,500, especially that with that much back pressure. When the valves did open, it would be like, bah! And you're like, oh god. Next to me, because
I've heard that. I've heard that.
Normally, and it just made this like scream, and we were like, "Whoa!" It was like I said, it literally could do both, but also be a modded car. Like I know that the Z06s, ZR1s, and all that stuff can do both because they're stock. This was a heavily modded car that he did daily, and still did both. Like I said, to the day he sold it, we drove it. It was like. You just put it in tour, highway, 7th gear, cruise.
That's cool.
So I can tell you, like I said, as a person, obviously way biased on the Corvette side, and knowing that you want to modify things, these are very receptive to modifications. They're easily capable of the horsepower. They lose zero of the drivability. And like I said, they're phenomenally reliable. It would just be, I think you would never, I don't think you'd revisit Ford again. I think you'd be a Corvette boy forever if you got a C7.
I mean,
right.
Here,
like I said, you can boy, I will regale Greg with tales of my last trip.
The trip?
I need to step away myself.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Or we can answer any questions in the chat if anybody has any.
You guys have been very, very chatty in chat, and I appreciate that. And thanks for everyone that has already come on and chatted and then left. Ralph, Vic, Steve, appreciate you guys all as always coming on here. And even when Elliott isn't on, I've seen you guys in chat and watching the stream too. So I appreciate that, and thank you guys for coming back frequently. And saying that, Chad and Greg are part of your week, so appreciate that. But you guys are making some really interesting points in here. Anthony with a really good point, actually, Beetle with a Porsche engine, which is something that literally I shit you not, Chad messaged me about. We were talking about about Chad's dad's car progress, and he had said that he went from Mustang to Corvette to Beetle. And I'm like, honestly, the old air-cooled Beetles are cool if you do the right thing with them. And one of the things Chad said was like, oh, but a modern four-cylinder Porsche engine. And I'm like, ooh, that's actually really good in a Beetle. That would be utterly fantastic. So legitimately, that comment is something we talked about no more than 4 hours ago. Yeah. Buy a crashed 718 and just toss the four-cylinder out of that thing in there. That would be ridiculously good.
I do like my buddy Michael is watching. His question has nothing to do with anything. He just said, "When are you going to purchase a C4 Corvette for me?" Michael, yes. I'd love to. You've already had one, so I don't really want to hear it. But that'll be when I have completed my C4 collection of every weird one, and somebody's gonna walk into he's like, "Why do you have C4s?" Like, I've walked into there was coming to one of the collections we went on. It was a couple of years ago on the Indiana tour. One of the things the guy had, he was like, he just loved 58 Corvettes, and he was like, I just have one in every color. And I was like,
hey, great. Look, you like what you like. I mean, that's cool.
So I wanted one in every factory offered color. I'm like, good job,
good man, good on you.
Yeah,
I like that. Actually, speaking of C4s, did you, not that you watched our video, but did any of you guys in chat watch one of the short forms?
Watched the reel.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
The ZR1 barn find?
With the ZR1 barn find in England.
Nice. Yes. Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. Johnny Smith from Fifth Gear, he had found one, I guess, that some farmer owned, and they found, which is barn finds happen all the time, so they're not as for me, it's just like, oh, cool, they found it. It's been sitting forever.
90s barn finds for a car that wasn't really ever imported there in the first place is nuts.
That's exactly it. It's like a 90s barn find ZR1 Corvette in the UK. That last 4 words are what blew my mind. And I'm like, oh, well, if you find it in the US, of course, I'm sure there's a bunch of them sitting around like that, because ZR1s are the ones you stash, right? So that of in the UK, it was like, ooh, that's interesting. So that blew my mind, and I'm like, I have to go watch this video. I'm only halfway through, but man, what a cool thing to find in the UK.
Yeah, that's absolutely, like I said, nuts. I mean, even to find a regular C4 in the UK would be insane, but probably for that person, not worth importing. But this was, I was fascinated with it. I will say this: I can't even imagine. It's hard to restore one of those in the US. They made a bunch of the 90s and made a bunch of the stuff, but it's such a weird engine and weird things. And even the pictures and stuff, even in the reel you shared, the intake piping was all worn away. And, all these needle stuff. And you're like, man, if that engine's even a little bit locked up, there's only a few LT5 experts in the world.
It is it has a lot of bespoke engine.
This was such a departure from what we see now when you get a special edition of something. And it's there's a lot of shared parts. When my dad had one when they were new, and he said he was one of the first people that got to do a factory delivery, and they were building C4s in the Bowling Green plant. And he said they had a separate assembly line for ZR1s. They weren't the same. And when I went there again, I've been a couple of 2 or 3 times now. Even now, like now, you can see them coming down the line, at least in the C6s. You could see C6, C6. You could tell it's a Z06, but they were all in the same line. You could tell which ones were which, but this one, there was like, no, the Z01s are over here, and other people are putting them together. It's not even the same as this one. It just looks the same. There are so few shared parts between the cars that is such an undertaking to be doing overseas that it's just everything's impressive. And like I said, the story alone, that was never a cheap car. It was never a cheap car here. You got to do the import fees and everything else. I remember it has nothing to really do with that, but it's part of that whole like importing special cars. When I was on my honeymoon in England, I had my Hellcat. It was pretty new and stuff like that. And she begrudgingly went by this dealership, and I peeked in, and they had a Charger Hellcat there. It was in England, and I was like, "Whoa, how did they get that here?" And I visited their website, and I looked it up, and they wanted $220,000 for it.
Yeah, well.
And I was like, yeah, because you can't.
Right, you can't get them.
So you can imagine in the 90s, it was like somebody had to bring it over there. So somebody paid through the roof to get that car. And I understand that a lot of people don't understand car storage, and they go, well, it's been inside. And you're like, that's not it. Not especially in a farm. You can't just like park it over a bunch of grass and a dirt, thing and be like, at least it's not getting rained on. It'll be fine. You're like, no, there's more to it. And obviously this Corvette seems to be a testament to that. I just can't imagine the story that this car has from being I can't only imagine like one of less than 2 handfuls of those cars being imported
probably
withering away in that condition on a farm. Like there had to be so many interesting, unique things that happened to get that car to where it is now that I would love to know more. There's no way that like he's a farmer and he's like, well, I've got to spare 100,000 pounds and I'll just put this extreme car away to rot away somewhere. You're like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And that could have been what happened, but it's still insane.
It is so weird. And especially the coolest thing about that car to me is the engine, because it was one of those things where it was the first outsourced Chevy engine. Chevy had made every single engine ever for their cars in-house, and they built them in-house. And they were just like, nope, this one needs to be more special. So they basically tapped Lotus to be like, we need you to do this. You guys know engine development, blah, blah, blah. And Lotus then designed it and was like, we can't even build this thing.
And they were like, there's no way we can produce this. Yeah.
Right. So, hey, they're reinviting the Americans back in with Mercury Marine. And I was like, hey, boat engine manufacturer, what can you do for us? So it automatically brought in the Lotus lighter is lighter, and then, or simplify and add lightness ethos. Then brought in the let's make this engine a monster just because we can ethos of Mercury Marine, and combined all of that into one space in the C4 CR1. It's like, as far as like modern Corvettes go, like that might be the wildest thing, because
it'll never
all the other stuff happened normally. Like all the C6, all the Z06s from C5 up, they were all designed and built by Chevy. Then there was no real like outside influence there. Like the C4 ZR1 is just a very interesting car in that sense.
Well,
I foresee those to go like probably in the next 20-30 years to go catastrophically up.
Right. And that's what we talked about it on our previous
catastrophically positive. That's a good one, Greg.
Yes, I'm just trying adjectives out. Yeah.
That is pretty good, actually. That's why I said on a previous stream, I was like, I've got to get one of these while they're still $30,000, because they will not be for very long. No. And right now, people are freaking out about Grand Sports because they have a cool paint job. I'm like, that's not the cool car. It's the ZR1.
Yes,
it's the ZR1. Correct. I get it. In a parking lot, the Grand Sport, you're like, whoa. Like, I get excited about Grand Sports. It's an iconic paint job.
It's got the stripes.
But that's all it is, in essence. The ZR1 is a special car. But the thing is, and one of the reasons even my dad got rid of his back in the day, is he was like, this is an insane car. Like, I'm driving over people, it's a normal Corvette. It has a badge this big and a third brake light.
That's it.
And if you look, obviously, part two side by side, you go, whoa, that one's way wider than the other one. How is that possible? Because they didn't do fender flares. The whole thing is wider.
Yeah.
You have to see two of them.
Which goes back to what you're talking about. It's like they are different cars. They're
different cars.
They're on a totally different assembly line because they're wider. They're literally a different car.
Like I said, nowadays we go wide body. You're like, it's fender flares and wider tires. Like, no, that was a wide body. Like the car has no fender flares or anything about it. I'm sure there's pictures of it out there, but two C4s, especially from the rear, parked next to each other, you're like, that's nuts.
But that was also part of its downfall, sales-wise, was the fact that it didn't look special.
Because it was, I mean, my dad, as an owner from new, it wasn't a little bit of an option. It doubled the MSRP of the car.
Yeah.
So a regular Corvette was $34,000. I mean, boy, I wish they would go back to that. And then you added the ZR1 package for $34,000.
Yeah, that was wild.
So at the time, that's why they didn't sell that well, because it was like, so what's all this? You know, obviously, if you're a diehard car guy, it's like a Copo Camaro. That's why they're going to go up in value.
Right.
So you had to know.
So you're saying I could have two C4s for the price of this one?
Right. And then this one is going to look the same, which is why they can rightfully, they're like, oh, also, if we're going to make a special one, it needs to look special, which is what they've done. So, C7 ZR1, wild looking car. I'm sure the C8 ZR1 is going to be a wild looking car. And they did, by the way, as a person who's been to the museum and all this other stuff a million times, they did have bigger plans for that engine. They have an LT5 on a stand with turbos. Like they had stuff. But like I said, sales were so abysmal. 90, they sold a bunch of them. But like I said, 91, and then I think 92 and on, there were less than 1,000 made every year. So by the time they got to 94 and 95,
that's crazy.
They made 300 or 400. It was like, so they're just insanely rare. That's why people always like, it's a 90 ZR1. I'm like, I don't really care about the 90. I was like, I care about every year after that, because they made a few thousand of the 90. And the 90 is the only one that has old 80s front end, new back end. And it just previewed the style that, that went on. I could nerd out over this car all day long.
Well, one thing I wanted to mention was, and I don't know if you guys touched on this, because I came in right as you were talking about the engine. The original engine, Lotus was like, hey, how do you like this? Well, I think the original one was like dual overhead cam heads on a small block. And then they came back with a badass engine that was making over 400 horsepower, which is massive in that era.
It's naturally aspirated. That was like 700 horsepower naturally aspirated now. You'd be like, what?
Yeah.
How?
You're like, that is crazy.
But Chevy's like, no, the bore spacing's wrong. Like, they had to keep the small block bore spacing. And it's just like, but it's not a push. You're like the defining characteristic of
it's not
the
a push
small
rod.
block.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't, right? Like,
you guys are outsourcing the engine anyway. Let them do their thing. Shut up.
Exactly.
But before we kind of move on, there's one thing I did want to touch on, because you did mention the bright, shining neon light, Mustang light. And it did get me thinking. And partially
that you have one that you've been meaning to hang up?
Not a neon light. And then this did take me a little bit longer to find, because I still have somewhere, and I really need to find them, because I really want to like shine them up and use them as art in the one little sliver that I have for art that's in shot when Greg and I stream, is I have the 59 Vets hubcaps that my dad
that is cool.
That's cool.
But
that's really cool.
And I apologize, I have to go full screen, so chat, you're not going to get to look at, well, you're probably happy you don't get to look at Greg, but we're going to have to remove Elliott for just one moment.
Sorry, guys. Wait, here we go. Look, there's this room for Ford neon sign right there.
God, Chad, we need to get you a new chair for the love of all that is holy.
This is an upside down front end of a Mustang.
Down, yep.
Yes, it is.
That's from Hobby Lobby.
That's from Hobby Lobby.
I know what that is.
So here's a little bit of backstory for those. Like, I want studio art, but I also want like a studio. As you can see, like I have this wall for art, and this wall is never in shot, like ever.
Yeah.
When Greg and I are streaming, I would love to rearrange my room to have it so where it looks more studio-ish.
You want a VinWiki type thing?
Yeah, I mean, well, not even VinWiki, but like if you look at,
take us off full screen, Chad. Well, no need. I'm gonna be right back.
Is this better? Better or worse?
I don't care.
Wow,
I like that
like...
it's me now, and it's just, and he's like, I don't care.
Actually, hold on. Let's just do it this way. Where is it?
Great.
There we go.
Yeah. It's just blank room. People tuning into the stream right now are just like, is this actually like Joanna Gaines and she forgot to turn her computer off? What's going on here? This is great. Behold, my white kitchen. Honestly, dude, your kitchen's very nice. It is much nicer than mine.
Yeah, it is very nice. Why can't I?
It is very nice.
Add.
And my cat's butt. Yeah, I forgot about the cat just chilling there. I like it.
Multicam, dual host. There we go.
So once Elliot comes back, I also need to.
But at any rate,
for a second, we're going back to
Chad's
cars after this.
The one thing I did want to mention about that was that those were gifts from two of my favorite people in this world, Lou and Courtney. We've mentioned them here before. They are amazing people, and when I got my car, they saw like the excitement in it. When I got it modded, they saw even more excitement in it. I don't know why we have the highest concurrent viewers when we just had Elliott's kitchen on the screen, but I'm here for it. It's anyway, like they saw that excitement and they got me these Mustang themed things, and part of me feels really bad that I haven't been able to like hang some of that stuff up, but I am probably just to kind of illustrate this piece of art of a horse-drawn wagon, which isn't exactly car themed. That's probably going. That was reserved for the silver plaque when we hit 100,000 subs on the main channel, but I think some Mustang paraphernalia needs to go up there. It's long overdue. But thank you to Courtney and Lou. Courtney is in chat. Thank you. Apparently my cat walked by.
And thank you, Doug, for the 100 stars for the seed money for our cooking show. Appreciate that.
Yes.
Folks, I'm getting the cat. Everyone's wondering.
Oh, Elliott's cat. No, okay.
Yeah, it wasn't a sexual reference. Look, there's an actual cat right here.
I'm getting the cat. Oh yeah.
Don't forget. In the link in the description, you can get your very own Elliott the Drift Cat T-shirt.
That's true.
That is true. Cat. It's an awesome shirt.
I will be wearing that shirt at Carlisle for those that are going to be there.
Heck yeah,
Nice.
For sure.
All right, we are back though.
So, at any rate,
yes.
Thank you
Back
to Courtney
to Chad's
and Lou.
cars.
But let's I love this. Like I know Greg, you mentioned this before. Why did I bring up the wrong screen? There we go. I love ideas that I'm not thinking of because
Good. Well, the regular the regular cars are now done. There were a couple more in the regular cars. I'm gonna breeze past those. There were a couple more ATSVs. But also those links now for me aren't working. However, there also was another Mustang link, and that car is now sold. So we can't bring that up. It literally isn't coming up on Auto Tempest anymore. So
just imagine
not
it was a previously modded S550. So
okay, gotcha. All right, so still
Damn
getting
it.
the ballpark.
Yeah,
but
I know they were. I just know he would have liked maybe be like, all right, this one's already kind of been messed with, and
okay, yeah,
you know.
Perfect.
well, there's certain mods that I like. In that there was a car in Rhode Island that had a supercharger kit put on it, and the supercharger kit was installed by a dealer, certified dealer to do so by Ford, so that if you put this Whipple, it was a Whipple Gen 5 3-liter on there, it basically got you close to 700 crank, if you put the right fueling in it.
Gives you a warranty though.
But yeah, exactly. And it was installed at Bob Tasca Ford. If Tasca sounds familiar, that's because Tasca is a team in NHRA that runs funny cars. So there's a lot, and of course,
what's so funny about them?
Funny about
that
what?
they're funny looking.
I know. It was a dumb joke.
Oh, okay. Went right over my head.
Funny looking, man.
It went over my head. You're like, what do you mean? I was like, I'm just saying, what's so funny about them?
I thought I said something. I thought I said something. And I was
No.
like,
funny
am
cars.
I
I'm
missing?
like, I know what's funny.
If I'm like, what did I say that I'm now missing because my brain
No,
is
now,
absolute
now it's
mush.
not funny because I had to describe. No, listen, it was a bad joke. So let's move on.
Yeah, right. At any rate, okay. So
Yes.
some ATSVs.
I also have to step away, but now we're getting into the list where there were some randoms / funny stuff that Elliot sent through, which I've looked through these. There are two in here that are actually good suggestions that you said funny, but I'm like, they he might actually go for them. The first one that I'm going to send you is not. So go ahead and discuss this thing because I'm very excited to hear Chad's opinion, and I will return in 5 seconds.
All right. No, 100% no. Next.
So I'll put it up on the screen because I know.
No, put it up. You got to talk about it for at least 2 minutes.
Yes,
For at least
okay.
2 minutes.
So this is perfect because before this was early on in the stream, you said I'm not over my JDM phase.
Right, and then I proceeded to say I don't like 4-cylinder, but I get it. Continue.
Right, but this is a very potent 4-cylinder.
Yes.
They've been proven to be pretty reliable.
As Hondas are.
Responsive to mods, obviously, as a boosted 4 would be. I know it's a bit garish looking. I understand that.
I don't know if I trust the dealer that puts the license plate upside down. But in any way, continue.
That is a little wild. Man, what an amateur photo shoot. They should have just not left a plate on there. Anyway, the thing is that it's well within budget. They've been proven good cars.
Yes.
I like this first gen Type R. No, I know it's not first gen, first US gen Type R. The only thing I don't like about it is the little window smokers shade things. I know it's a look. I don't personally care for them. I think it could be a cool car, and I mean the differential in these things. Yeah, I know they're only front wheel drive, but they've been proven they don't really torque steer, which is a modern marvel. I know it's not gonna be a consideration, but it would be crazy to not put something like this on the list with the criteria given.
No, so I agree with your thought process. I agree that the engineering in these things is incredible for what is now almost a little less than $32,000.
Right.
I have no problem with Honda 4-cylinders. In fact, I've said this more times than probably anybody wants to hear again. One of my dream builds is a 70s Datsun 510 coupe with a pissed off, fully built NA K-series motor.
Right. You've told me that before. That is,
so cool. Like, I don't hate the concept of a Honda. And there's actually, I don't know if you know the history with shifting lanes in Type R, but originally my C30, at least in a straight line, because I knew for a fact it was never going to be able to hang with one of these in the corners. But at least in a straight line, power to weight, manual box versus manual box, the C30 was in a...
You have one more cylinder. It's not fair.
But only 100 cc more in displacement.
Right.
Or no, these are 2 liters or 2.4.
I know. I'm
More
just doing
pistons,
kid math.
more power.
I'm doing kid math.
But I mean, not for nothing, a 5-cylinder is infinitely more charismatic and has.
It is, and we know
character.
this. We all know as 5-cylinder owners in our lives. Yes.
So it's here's the thing with these. So it was a rival car, so I always kind of had that viewpoint to it. And it was kind of new and exciting, so it was kind of legit baity, kind of clickbaity now that we never actually got to race it because I got fed up with the caster issue on my C30. My thing with these is that from this angle, I actually like the look. I don't like strutted splitters. I don't like the struts.
I do.
I mean, that's a personal thing, right?
Personal preference.
That's a personal preference.
I like them. Racer boy.
Where this car lost me was their inability to stop designing it in the rear end. Like,
I hear you.
Yeah,
it's a weird design. It's very it's a very acquired
used it
taste.
earlier. It's garish is the best way.
I don't mind.
I
I don't mind garish. I don't mind outlandish. I don't mind loud styling. I don't mind any of that sort of stuff. In some cases, I actually kind of prefer it. If
I like it. I think it's a cool design,
I don't know if we've ever
honestly.
talked about it,
Thank you,
but
Greg.
at some point,
You're welcome.
at some point down the line, whatever my next car is, I want to wrap it. And the wrap idea I had for my Mustang is I wanted to do what would effectively become, and I know I'm piggybacking off of DDE on this one, but a Lark style, the Lark livery is an all-time great for me. I love the look. I love that it's pink, but not really pink. But you want to talk about garish on a daily driver on a car you see on the street every single day? Like, I don't, it's just an example of, I don't mind that. But I don't like design for what feels like design's sake, right? I
think this is an interesting choice though, because it to me in a way, like, because this is obviously like it's the previous gen Civic, it's the Civic hatch. I think this is actually better designed as a hatchback than the new one is, because the new one's getting really close to skewing the lines between what a hatchback is and what a sedan is.
I like
this looks
one.
like a hatchback. The other one
looks like a Type R. You know,
yeah.
Like the new one is too tame, for my opinion.
Right, but that's always been a hallmark
I like
of
the new
Type
one
Rs,
better overall than this one. I think overall it's just a better, more aesthetically pleasing package. But this one really goes back to what like the Type R is supposed to be. It's this wild-looking, high-revving, cool, interesting, funky boy racer style of hot hatch. Where if you go into the UK, what's the one that was like? It was hot hatch style, but it was weird looking. It's weirder than this, in my opinion.
Right. It was like the 04 or 05.
Yeah.
with triangles everywhere.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, there's that one. It was the one that was on Top Gear a lot. And that one, the one was like, haha, you're not getting this one. But that one was even weirder than this to me. And the fact that we didn't get that one and got this one, I'm like so happy about, because this one's much better looking. But to me, this is a modernized version of that, but better looking. Like it's still Type R, but like I think this is a great suggestion. I knew Chad wasn't going to go for it, but in budget, that as someone who's driven this car, this thing is bananas.
Yeah,
it is. There's two cars that I've ever driven that were total mind Fs to me. One was the Mustang GT350R, because there's no reason a Mustang should ever be able to do those things. And that does. It's just
good point.
Crazy. This was the other one because of how good the torque vectoring is in the front wheel drive platform this thing does. And I'm sure the modern one's better, but this thing was just nuts and totally made me a convert.
So I'm going to piggyback on two different things, because Chad's main gripe on this is, overstyled, styling for styling's sake, yada, yada. Two things. So we put up the STI earlier. What I say is this is kind of like that boy racer STI-ish look, but with all the reliability in the world.
Yeah,
and
true.
All of the potential.
No, you're not.
I know it's not all-wheel drive.
So
Sure. The other thing is, from your styling gripe, and maybe this is just me being me, oh, you don't like the back end? The good news is you will never have to look at it, because you'll be in the driver's seat. So there's really no point to be like, oh no, I'm subjecting people to this horrible rear end. That's their problem.
Or you could be a Type R owner and be like, all the haters are going to see my tail, not me.
Exactly. Then you put your locally hated thing on the back instead of on the front.
So
yes.
So here's
just never approach your car from the back. Always back into a parking spot.
always back into a parking spot.
There's so many solutions to this.
Always park where the front end is facing the
That's what I'm saying. There are solutions
where I'm
to this.
headed.
The back end it's not your problem.
Elliott Alvis, modern solutions for modern problems.
Exactly. Just saying. I just when you said it's like, I don't like the back, I was like, good news. It doesn't matter.
Right. So here's where I'll go with this car, and they're kind of contradictory to each other, but I'll start with my last negative, and I'll get to the positive.
Okay.
And then we can move on. So we all know that I'm kind of a stickler, and I kind of have a twinge of the old way is the best way, right? When it comes to my take on the new Charger, or calling a hot crossover a hot hatchback, like all these little delicate intricacies that make me the wonderful tapestry that is my total personality. Turbocharging ruins the Type R-ness to me, in that every single other Type R had a screaming, high revving, naturally aspirated. They weren't so necessarily concerned with Nürburgring lap times as an overall
I know
experience.
you're making yourself sound like a fuddy-duddy, though. I know where you're going.
I understand all that.
I get it though, because all the
I
other
do
ones
get
Now,
it. You're making a
this is a
point.
turbocharged four
Yeah.
cylinder that has a 7,000 RPM redline, which you do not see. So for as far as
Right.
turbocharged cars
Exactly.
go, it has a pretty big redline, and I like that. As an engineering thing, I really like these. So much so that, like I was saying before, and this kind of gets us into our, this does get us into the positivity, and again, how close you were to something I actually looked at and was like, well, crap, they're way out of budget. And that is, as this platform is concerned, phenomenal. The Type S would be the hot Honda front-wheel drive thing.
So yes, obviously, if those were in the budget, that's the one to do. That's
Right.
the mature version of this car. It's the obvious choice.
I'm not
They're
saying
out of
that. What I'm saying is that I'm not trying to sit here and say like, man, this Elliott Alvis, this isn't that 2006
I know,
you
because
showed
Greg was
earlier.
like, good choice. For this one, Chad's like, what are you thinking?
It's not
I like
necessary.
this was like, no, move on.
Like I said, there's a lot of other little stuff that, like with this car, it was a rival. In every single comparison test that they did with it, it went against a car that I liked a lot, and so it just naturally became the villain. And like I kind of
understand.
got stuck on that, but I like it. If the Type S, if down the road, like the Type S's or even the new Type R, which I do like the look of it, and I understand it doesn't have that boy racer sort of outlandish, sort of in your face. There's no mistaking what this is charm that this has, which I totally can appreciate.
At least you called it charm.
Yeah, I mean it's charming in the sense of like the guy. You ever see that meme of where like the guy's like sitting here talking to the like really intensely talking to the girl, and the girl has like a look of almost terror on her face?
I love that meme.
That's how
Yeah,
charming this
great
is, right? But but if a Type S comes on down the road, and I'm like, I
It
could
is.
do
That's
something.
the more mature choice. I understand that. Thank you for these.
Oh no, I'm
giving
sorry,
it-
not even the type. I'm sorry, not the Type S. Where I was going with this point is that again, the current Type R is more in keeping with the ethos of the Type R. If you look at Type R's as a whole throughout history, the Integra Type R, the EK, I think it was the EK Type R. Yes, there was the We Love Triangles one, but that generation of Civic was particularly awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
You know,
Sorry.
so Civics have always had the
So-
if you know, you know, and if you really know, you know just how good these things can be. And that's
Right.
kind of the
And when
Sorry.
you are cross
I
shopping
lost your
these,
ball.
no, you're good. When you're cross shopping Type R's, you're gonna go for the next one too, because this is definitely something you always cross shop with a modern Type R, which is a 1988 Ford Thunderbird Resto
excited
mod.
for this one.
That yes, me too. That looks like a NASCAR. That isn't a NASCAR.
No, Chad, this is right here for you. Again, well within budget.
This is right
A
here.
lot of room.
that is shockingly in budget given the bodywork.
It's
But
really like
kudos
looking into
as a
this, like, it's
YouTuber and everything
really
else.
Well done.
This was made. They made it for a commercial.
Holy shit, this is the
Yeah.
Fox body version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Of
this
the
is like the SVO version of the Thunderbird, but it really was in a commercial and everything. Look, see,
Yeah.
they've got green screens. I mean, like, so
Mhm.
it's got. I hate to use the word provenance because I don't know if it has that, but it has the NASCAR version of that. And you know what? No one else is going to have one of these.
Honestly,
But
it's
it still
very
has
cool.
reliability. This still has your neon sign of Ford hanging behind your, back there.
Yes.
Pride.
As
You can tell
a
everybody-
former big Bill Elliott fan, this
That's
hit
what I'm
me
saying.
right in the field.
Does it do
Every
211
once in a
around
while, there'll be
Talladega?
a guy
Is my question.
smoking a cigarette who gets so excited seeing this car
Hell yeah.
that it will make your day and be like, I made the right choice
Yeah.
every time.
I mean,
There is no way you buy this and then go drive it somewhere, park it, look back, and be like, I bought the wrong car, because you look back at this and you're just like, Why do I own this? This is so great. I love life.
There would be so many people unironically in jean jackets and
yes,
holding Walmart sacks, constantly gathered around this car.
dude. If you drove this thing to Walmart and parked it, you would never get in the store.
It would shut the whole place down. Like,
it's good to know they offer financing on this.
In that car, like they might be like, no, you're in the right place.
I've actually seen this for sale. I'm surprised it's still for sale, honestly. It's really well done. It really is.
But the thing is, also being around, having been around movie cars and show cars a little bit, I'm worried that it's that. I'm worried that it's like,
oh yeah,
it's meant to look good on camera, and then when you get close to it, you're like,
yeah.
Well, you can already tell, like,
it's a 20-foot car.
I mean,
yeah.
So let's start with the good here. As a second vehicle, you're not going to be able to beat it. And like, so you can tell. Well, you can't tell because none of you are inside of my head, and that's probably for your benefit. But
it's okay, Doug. I do have a jean jacket on, ironically, as well. But I wouldn't.
This thing,
Canadian tuxedo.
When my brain immediately goes to some sort of modification or, hey, this is a Fox body. Who builds some of the most, or arguably the best Fox body I've ever seen? It happens to be Blue Sky, the guys who built my car. So I have experts in the platform. This thing is it's 100% a click machine. Early on.
And you got budget. You got green on the table there.
That's right.
I mean,
you could coyote swap this thing with the budget. You could coyote swap this.
I mean, I have a spare one. I'm just saying.
That's true.
I was hoping to multiply the value of that.
15K ain't bad.
A lot of felt on the table.
I will say this: if I had, let's just say,
cool.
a budget of $50,000, I would slash that budget back to $35,000 and consider getting a car and this, because it's 100% something people are going to talk about. You're going to need some sort of probably some variation of a built 4.9 liter, i.e. what they called the 5.0 back in the day. Or not, what the 5.0 actually was back in the day. Sorry. Fun fact, the 5.0 in the Fox body was 4.9 liters.
It's everybody's guilty of it. The 6.3 and all the SLSs and C63s is a 6.2. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I think they're calling C43 AMGs now, and it's a 2-liter.
Oh no, those are just like AMG Sports. Don't even get me started on those.
Right.
Yeah, those are like the M240i BMWs.
They're the
like
M Sport or M2. Yeah,
but like if I could get
it's a half step.
If I could get like say that motor with the, I think they bore and stroke them out, or if they're just stroked. I don't know that platform well enough. That motor with, because this car screams for. It might even be worth noting that this might be a perfect candidate for a Godzilla.
That's true.
Pushrod V8, right? You don't want, as great as the Coyote is, this thing screams for a blah, 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 idle.
This thing screams a lot of different things.
I mean, it also screams that,
Dreams Coors, the banquet beer.
Dude, literally,
Sam
like
Elliott.
this car, I don't smoke, and I'm seriously considering starting smoking.
Like I said, this thing is very
like
interesting
because it feels wrong to not have a lit cigarette inside of this car.
Yes.
I don't think I could show that on the stream, but that sounded wrong. Look, there's absolutely no shot in hell I could daily drive this. Like, could I drive it as...
Oh, disagree.
You
totally.
could. You just get too much attention. You'd be
100%.
I could.
You could daily drive this and be the coolest MFer on earth.
Right. And I mean, I am thinking about moving down south. So, like, I mean, this has got to be worth at least 3 inches to a nice southern girl. But...
right. Like, so what the Maserati does, that this would do to southern women.
That's right. Yeah.
They'd be
like I said, it's incredibly
or southern
intriguing.
dudes.
Yeah, well, let's face it. Let's face it. Most insanely awesome cars that we like are appealing to 99.9994%
dudes
men.
only. I know. Trust me.
And the girls that you would are like, hey, you're cool and cute and all this. Like, there's a line of dudes.
And then you show them you drive that, they're like, what the hell?
I mean, this would absolutely drop all of the Alabama panties. I'm just saying.
That's right.
I know.
That's right.
It's like
Look
I
at that
said,
thing, dude.
like I said, this is a great second car. I honestly think,
cool. It is cool.
think, knowing Greg's budget for his car, this fits right in.
It's right out with the appreciation, though. Other than the appreciation of rednecks everywhere.
Yes, it's no longer. I don't want depreciation.
It's not a
I want more
financial
appreciation.
Oh,
Yeah.
you couldn't daily this because it doesn't have headlights. I just noticed that. Oh, you could
Yeah,
daily
but
it during
it's called
sunshine.
Well, it's simple.
daily,
That's what
not
it's
nightly.
daily. Yeah, it's exactly.
Yeah,
You
it's
just
night.
simply
It's not
don't work
nightly.
at night.
100% you can daily it because it's a day car.
Yeah, it's like I said. I will agree. It's hella cool.
You didn't see this one coming. Give me at least that.
No, I
Oh,
didn't see
yeah.
this coming,
This
and
is
it didn't
good.
even. This type of thing wasn't even on my radar. It's like,
I actually saw this car. I think it was on an article from The Drive or Car Scoops or something recently, within the last month or two. Like, because someone spotted it and wrote an article about it. Because I've seen this car recently, and I'm like, I can't believe it's still for sale because it's honestly it's awesome. Like I'm
It's
shocked
pretty cool.
some collector hasn't like snatched it up just for the shits and giggles of it. Honestly,
Right. Absolutely.
it's cool. It's really cool. All right.
Yes.
So
All
like
right,
like
there
I
we
said,
go.
you're cross shopping Type R's with this, of course, every day. Also
natural.
cross shopping. Yes, I mean it's natural. Also in that same vein, cross shopping the one that I just sent Chad. Also that for sure, 100%. Because when you cross shop 1988 Ford Thunderbirds, you also, cross shop 350Zs for sure.
I don't know why
Right.
that's-
Now, this one, I do think, while not his style, and maybe not dailyable, still cool.
Very cool.
Because it would get you into the world of LSs, but still pretty decently reliable running gear. You just take that tire lettering off. I think that's the only thing that's gaudy about it.
No, I'll leave that on. That's the best part.
Okay, I was looking at
As a
it. And I was
tire
like,
letter
is this a
enthusiast,
stand?
leave that
I
on.
think that they did that. I think they shot
a
it with
fishing.
the wide angle lens. It makes it look like
Yeah,
a little odd.
yeah,
Like
they
you
did the
can't-
Micro Machines angle. It's awful.
Yeah, you can't
So-
just do that.
Again, I do actually like a good Z. It's just, and it's. I'm trying to
Look
see
at that stick shift.
It is. No,
That
like I
screams,
said, one of my
"I
favorite cars
have
I've
a
ever owned
penis that's huge.
was a 350Z. It was not LS swapped, but I'm just saying this one's look. It's got AN fittings. I mean, the thing is, like, it looks to have
I mean,
been built.
Tilton.
It looks like it's done really nicely
I
actually.
mean, like, it looks showable, like clean. It's not
Yeah.
backyard.
No,
shoved into-
someone who-
It's got
No.
The person who, as opposed to that '06 Mustang, the person who built this wasn't doing all the meth.
right. They weren't hammered the entire time.
No,
were hammered.
they put the
Look,
meth into this car,
I-
not into their mouth.
Right.
No,
I
I think this
do-
thing is kind of cool.
It is.
But that's
Yeah,
what I'm saying.
very
It's wacky.
cool.
It was a wacky suggestion.
It's very
but,
badass.
It's in the
Um,
budget, but man, is it cool?
I love this.
Unique.
I do like this platform. It is unique. I do like the idea of it being a bit different. And like I did for a brief moment look at 350, 370Zs, excuse me, and G35s.
Wow.
For a brief moment, because I think I've mentioned this before, but if I haven't, just a refresher. The G35 was one of the most fun cars I've ever had the privilege of driving, from the fact that it was a little more grown up than I like the Z styling, but the G35 was a little more grown up. But
I-
that extra length in
I
the wheelbase made it so much. It to this day is still the easiest car I've ever driven sideways. And when I say
No,
easiest,
when
I
I-
mean the most predictable. It
It
made
also
me
had
look
two
like a hero.
15 section tires on it, so that probably had a little bit to do with it.
Well, no, I mean, as a
Well,
guy
just
who
the
owned a
chassis
350,
balance.
I originally was shopping for a G35, but again, I know when I say this now, it is such a stigma because those cars are all so bad now. But in 2006, they weren't.
No.
You know, like
Right.
it was like I wanted a G35, but it was so hard to find a stick G35.
Yeah, they were not easy to find because most of them are automatics.
Right. And so the thing is like that's what I sought out, and then I ended up with a stick 350Z, but I don't regret that. It's like I said, probably like almost like even more than the Hellcat because of I owned one that wasn't ratted out. I mean, I had one with 10,000 miles on it or whatever, like, and nothing, and it was a year old or whatever. It was a perfect example. Like that will never happen again. So somebody goes, well, you love 350Zs, why don't you just get another one of those? I was like, because it'll never.
Right. Well, they became.
It's kind of like what we.
Yeah. No.
This thing suffered a lot.
This thing eventually. Now, if I had this one, I wouldn't compare it at all. I'd be like, no, it's totally different.
This is almost. This is. I don't. It's a bad comparison, but it's like because of the engine, you almost would feel compelled to compare it to a Corvette. In that.
Well, you have to. It's always short wheelbase Corvette because it's Corvette engine.
Yeah.
It's what you do with the G8 or Chevy SS. You go, it's
cool. It's another one of those that would be like for me looking at it, second or third car. I do love wide body. I love flush wide bodies though. The riveted on wide body. If this was flush, would make this thing really tempting.
There are very few cars that I actually do like riveted wide bodies on. 350s are one of them because I do feel like they go with the aesthetic of the car very nicely.
There's a very JDM feel to it.
Yeah, this looks to be done quite nicely.
So this is the JDM,
right?
Yes.
And
with
it's
the
not
LS, which you need in your life, whether you know it or not.
I don't disagree with that sentiment.
This obviously. It was an outlandish suggestion.
No, I actually like looking at cars like this more than like all right, here's the clean foundation. Because I like seeing someone else's creativity. Like the guy who did this to this car had a vision. And then because of the level at which he did this, I maybe not to this level just because of the way the engine looks built. The engine looks really well taken over. He's got all these tilting, like you could tell that this was done well. And stuff, but I could see the guy looking at the parts, getting excited for, this is the cam for the engine, or this is the wide body. Like, hey, I found the wide body. Oh, there's a wider body that. This looks nuts and everything, and I could see the passion with it, and I love that because there's a true genuine love to it, as opposed to, let's just say hypothetically, and I'm not saying this as any sort of stigma or anything. But let's just say that the Shelby that you showed earlier, the convertible, that may have been that guy who loved the car, but like it was his cruiser. And
it was his boomer thing, like I said, just like you put it up in front of the car show with the poster board that describes what it is.
Yeah.
This it's like obviously an outlandish suggestion, but it was unignorably cool.
Yes, I will 100% agree with
in the price range.
It is cool, yeah. All right, next one, because we're going to do rapid fire, because I didn't realize it's already 11 o'clock.
It is late, yeah.
We're going to do rapid fire for these. So it's either a yes or no, a one-liner, and then we're going to the next one.
Let me at least defend it before
yes.
he gets yes or no.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I know.
Hey.
So, listen, it's hard to find 911s in this price range at all because
I agree.
The market now. Crazy. They are really good cars. IMS bearings, released. No, it's not the big power that you're used to or like, and it's not the platform that you can mod reasonably priced. You can mod them. But obviously it's, a whole thing. And this one appears to even have foggy headlights.
Yes.
But that being said,
it's a portion budget.
It's still a Porsche. It's not a Boxster. It's a 911.
Yeah.
Which is big. This would be a really cool car, a total departure from what you have, which is why I included it in the list.
Right.
I know it's not in the wheelhouse, but I was going for, hey, what about?
I totally understand.
That's kind of my defense. I know they're good.
So hear me out on this. I am mildly interested in these for two reasons. Reason number one, Tony Angelo just LS swapped one. And there's apparently kits to make it relatively not fab heavy to do that swap in these. So that's number one.
I've driven an LS swapped one.
So that's number one. So where my brain goes, okay, we've solved the lack of power issue with an an LS. These cars, I understand how great they are engineering wise. I cannot, in their stock form, the headlights bug the crap out of me.
Yeah, they're definitely a love it or hate it thing.
But that said, there used to be, and I don't know how much carried over or even if it would even work. But I always thought that one of these, let's just say hypothetically, we did an LS swap, we did a wide body conversion in the back, or like a Carrera 4S style of the next generation, and then slant nosed converted it. Like a 996 to me, that's where it's like, hey, I have all this money to mod, and I understand that doesn't even come close to being within budget. But that's where they become cool to me, is that it's like, it's the 911 nobody likes, so you're not going to catch an overwhelming amount of shit for modifying it. And that's the route I would go with this. Man, you did a lot of shopping in Washington. Right. Next one.
Well, I did nationwide shopping. Like I said, I wanted to catch all. I can't just shop local. You've seen all of those.
True. This next one actually is the one that I thought you would be the most interested in the wacky category, which now I'm interested in, quite honestly, because it's very cool.
Yeah,
and it is.
I know it's a good shout, but it's a preserved one.
Yeah,
and
that's why
I can say they really are good. And we did kind of touch on these earlier on with the 05 Mustang, stuff like that. This is the beginning of the Alpha platform, ish.
Yes. No, I get where you're going with that.
Yeah.
It is unassuming and all this other stuff. I still actually I have two. It's in my childhood bedroom. Obviously not my all white kitchen back here, but I still have two posters of this generation GTO in my room. I know it's not a poster car for most people, but I love these. And like I said, I was so fortunate. My dad got an 04 when I was a kid, and it was like one of those cars that, like, when I got my learner's permit, he'd let me drive sometimes with him. And it was just like one of those things. And then when I got older enough, we drove an 05 and he'd let me drive that. Like, I just have such a core memory and fondness for these. In fact, I have another picture that was taken on one of the first, mass-produced digital cameras. I did my first burnout ever in one of these. My dad taught me how to do a burnout in one of these as a kid. But like I said, this one in particular, I know it's high budget because it's almost that 350Z effect. These got to a point where they were so cheap that they all got clapped out.
Right.
So it's very cool to see one preserved, and I know that it would still drive. Like, these are like Corvettes, like maintained. They're a good car. It's a good platform. It will last as long as you want it to last. And this one is one of the ones that got away from those, neglectful hands, let's just say.
Right.
And obviously we got a platform that's receptive to mods if you wanted to. I know you just said you don't like the blank canvas thing, but I think in this case, being new to the LS platform, you kind of might like a blank canvas.
Right.
You kind of been there, done that.
That's a good point.
Well, it's not that I don't. It's not that I'm opposed to or dislike the blank canvas. In the sense that, if I'm being perfectly honest, that's probably the smart way to go, because I don't have to undo somebody else's mods or fix something they did wrong, or all the stuff that comes with all the. Yes, exactly.
They say what they did, but there's always something.
So, I always liked these. I liked the idea of, well, it was new and it was kind of an old badge, but a new take on it, right? Like you said, that sort of beginning of the retro nameplate kind of era of cars coming back, right? Like the Mustang's an old name, but it never went anywhere, right? Like there was never a period of years where we had no Mustang, like the Camaro, like the Challenger, like the Charger, like the GTO. Did,
and like I said, what Chevy did, I'm agreeing with you. The thing that I don't like is that Pontiac did bring back the badge on such an underwhelming looking car.
That's the only thing.
But it had the chops to back up the badge.
Right, but when you go back and you look at, well, so comparing any car from today to a car from the 60s
is silly.
Is unfair. Because they had free reign to design whatever the hell they wanted. They didn't have to worry about, the bumper needs to be X amount high. We have to have the headlights at least this distance from the ground.
Right.
The waist of the car has to be of a certain height to pass
And it gets worse every year. I know.
You know,
Yeah,
like
100%.
so it's unfair. But if you think of the ethos, right? Now I understand we never got a base version of this car like they did in Australia, the Commodore, right? There was no base 6-cylinder Commodore
Right.
that they built off of to make the GTO. But what was the GTO back in the day? It was basically a Le Mans
That was hopped up.
that was hopped up. This is a Commodore that was hopped up, and
Plus, you can say you're driving around in a Holden.
you also have that. I don't think that helps the GTO nomenclature.
I really never thought they were that bad looking. I know the general public did.
I actually liked the way
Yeah, I
they
don't think
looked,
they're bad
and
looking at
I
all.
liked the idea because I mean, let's face it, of all the classic muscle cars from back in the day, the one that translates probably the worst to modern day is the GTO, with just how flat
you
the
can't
front.
make that. Yeah, you couldn't do that.
You couldn't make that shape. You couldn't make that
Yeah,
shape
no way.
work. There
You
is
couldn't
no
do any of the design characteristics from that car.
exactly.
today.
Right.
I mean,
Except for the double grill, like that's it, and it's not even the same.
And even
like you
then,
might
it
be
would
able
like
to,
a
like
half-assed callback. It'd be
Yeah,
you
like
might
it's-
be able to
yeah,
get away
yeah.
with kind of judge styling, but again, it'll look a little too tall from the front, right? Like that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
since you can't do that,
But
and this
this
kind
thing's
of follows GTO ethos, why not put the GTO name on it? And these came with the 6.0 and then later ones with the 6.2? Or was it always
no,
a 6.0?
So originally 04 only.
Oh,
was
5.7
the
and-
5.7
yeah,
LS1, and then 0506 because they only made these for 3 years. So 04 only, no hood scoops, a 5.7 LS1, and then LS2 0506.
Yeah, I mean, I always dug the hell out of these cars. I liked what they were. I liked the idea of what's the best way to put it? I like the idea that Chevy didn't give up on the quote unquote pony car because effectively this is a pony car, even if the original wasn't. But
Still has IRS for you.
that's also
That's
true.
right.
I did like that it was a pony car that was sort of bucking the trend, and the trend was the Mustang, and that was it. But it was one of those things that Chevy got rid of the Camaro, and then you're like, oh, all is not lost, kind of a thing. And
All
Yeah.
was lost for a couple of years, but yes.
well, you lost the Camaro, but GM said, hey, we have this. And I think this was a great sort of segue from the cheese wedge Camaros to
Oh, absolutely.
modern day Camaros.
But let's get back to the point of for you. Could
For-
you imagine yourself owning, driving, modding one of these?
Yes, but here's the thing. A lot of these cars are cars of like, man, I would the S550, the C7, and the ATS-V notwithstanding. And I think that kind of gives away where my head's at, is that I would love a lot of these as a second car because I made it clear with the big screen, with the CarPlay and all that stuff. I have become
Right. This is definitely too old for that.
I have become accustomed to, and call me soft, call me bougie, call me spoiled, whatever.
You're soft, bougie, and spoiled.
Thank you.
Whatever, soft, bougie, spoiled, Chad.
Yeah.
Listen, if your car doesn't even have over 350 wheel horsepower, I want you to.
It's close.
I mean,
It's
technically
close.
speaking, I have 0 wheel horsepower, but at the moment, it's one of those things where I would love to play with one of these because I would love to go ham, but I'd want it as a second car. Like this is something that, and this wasn't something I told you, but it's something I have thought about, and that is part of me. It's a very small part, but part of me is also considering a first gen Raptor with the 6.2 and having that pickup because I've
Great.
never had a pickup truck. I've always kind of wanted one. I don't really have any sort of need for one, but if I was to get one, I'd get a Raptor. It's kind of that thing.
Well, that fulfills your American need for one now because just to haul nothing but yourself is the modern pickup way.
Right. And then I thought to myself, like, that would be
That's
really
right.
cool. And then I can I could throw out a lot of the sort of creature comforts that I want in cars and go for that strictly cool factor of, hey, this is a
Yeah.
GTO. What if I, We built it up. What if I got like went on Texas Speed and said, ooh, the 450, I think it's the 450 something. I think it's 454 maybe. I know that shares displacement with the Chevy Big Block, one of the big blocks, but this is a LS based. But the caveat is that it's 700 horsepower NA. Put that motor in this, play with.
Oh, Greg's got a point.
Play
Two
with that.
things before we move on, because we got to get to our last one of the night. I think this is a great suggestion, especially considering that it's more of like a modern muscle car, especially which is right in Chad's wheelhouse.
But it's
one thing I like that there's 13 images on this, and 4 of them are in shot as front 3/4 with the wheel turned. I just think that's hilarious because only 13 pictures, but 4 of them are from the same angle. It's like, well, the salesperson or whoever took these videos really likes this car from the front 3/4.
Yeah.
Just like 13 images. Like, I mean, you should at least double the amount of images. And
That is-
maybe
I
get
This
some
is a
different
hell of
angles
a car.
here.
Here's the thing: if I was to get that GTO and do the build I mentioned, I wouldn't go with something this nice because this is Survivor. The glass
this is a
isn't
nice
even
car.
fogged. Like,
Yeah,
that's
that's,
nuts.
that's a
why I
good
think
point.
this car is truly amazing. Like I said,
Yeah.
it would
And
look
this
good
is
in your
really
garage
yellow,
next to the
phenomenal.
V70R.
The
I'm
color
not
of
gonna
this
lie.
thing's fantastic.
one of these they didn't make yellow in 06, but I wanted yellow 05 that is this level of nice in my dream collection.
There's one on a road near me that's that burnt orange color, and it's just parked
It's an
outside the
06
guy's.
only.
It's that color. That to me, that's the hero color in this car. Is that burnt orange? This blue is gorgeous, but that burnt orange on these things is just like the quintessential modern GTO color.
It's an odd thing because it's very easy to do. I know as much about this generation of GTO as I do about Corvettes, but it's extremely easy. 3 years.
Yeah, three years is pretty good. And 2,
Yeah, so
the point of like the next option of that cool factor. I don't think you can possibly get a better cool factor than what's next on the list, and it's the last one of the night.
I
because-
guarantee if it's what I'm thinking, it's just me like absolutely not.
Here's the thing.
I know we've been down this road before,
Yeah.
or at least Greg's has, but
Hold on.
I mean,
Hold
the
on.
cool factor here is off the charts.
Here's the thing.
absolutely.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and this is why I left this for last, because Chad is or has at least entertained looking at this, because that one that he has on screen is a blue one that's local.
Well, right, but that's out of the. That's not exactly fair.
I understand
hard
that.
number.
I know.
The point I'm trying to make is that
Yes.
like so many of your suggestions, you're right there.
Yeah,
You know, with
You're
a little
like- you
more,
are
with a
spot
little
on
more,
with a lot of them.
like you have gotten a lot of vehicles that I have looked at. And granted, I gave you a few, like as you know, all right, here's your BP. All right, it swings on plane, go play. But like that, the point I'm making with this one is that you were there. I've looked at these.
Yeah.
I've seen them.
100%.
Look,
I
this
know
this
not
version
for
of
the
Aston
guy.
Martin, I would absolutely
That's
love
a
to get
crazy
back in.
price.
I mean, $32,000 for an Aston Martin. That's nuts.
That's a
Out of this
crazy
world.
price for this
And
car.
we're right there back with that sound of arousal
Yes.
that the Maserati does. I know, we all know from these,
Yes.
it's right there. It's so good.
without a question or a shadow of a doubt. Here's again, you're close because when I had my short period of time with Greg's, that car didn't need to be immensely powerful to have fun in, whether it be on a back road enjoying it, you know, driving it a little hard, or to just do normal stuff. Every time you got in the car, it was in a sense of occasion, and it was enjoyable in one respect or the other.
That's why I put the
why?
Maserati Grand Sport on there. It is even though you haven't done it literally is. I know it's much of a joke. It is
Yeah.
very similar.
No, I
you're
don't.
right,
I
you're right.
do not disagree with you. The one place it deviates quite substantially is this era V8 Vantage will go down.
Was
as-
owned by Ford, so we're right back.
It doesn't. It has Volvo parts on it, so it's just you could make the same argument for Greg. Like you need to replace those mirrors, go find an XC90 from the same year. But
I know.
the fact that it works is a testament to the design studio. But this generation of Vantage will go down, and it probably already has, as the best looking British Grand Tourer, I think, of the modern era, if not possibly ever. I know the cars from the 60s, like E-Types and DB5s, are really hard to beat. But as far as the modern era, nothing touches this. I mean, the F-Type gets close, and you can tell that they were designed by the same person, but this, it was like first time, knocked it out of the park. It's like the band that has their best song ever as on their first release, and they're endlessly chasing to duplicate that, right? These are so good looking. And when I sent the 07 to Greg, I said, like, talk me out of it, because I was seriously considering it. And then Greg's like,
I can't. I own one. They're awesome.
Greg rather intelligently goes,
great.
They're phenomenal. It's also an Aston Martin, and that comes with a bit of an upcharge in maintenance.
Yeah,
sure,
that was
again. I like the deviation. Like, let's not.
It is. It is a very different idea, and a good one, because if you go back to the blue one, that side shot from there, like, they don't make cars like this. It is, if you look at just the front end of this car, it is designed in a way where there's almost no hood above the wheel from that angle
insane.
On
that
the
is
side.
Incredible. That is
which is unbelievable as far as car design. No car designer ever does that, really, ever. And the way this thing, it looks like it has the presence. It is that deviation of, like, just totally bucking the norm. And the way this thing looks, like, you almost have to consider it because of how it looks. And because of how it sounds. Like,
well, then
it is one of those cars that you, like,
drives, and
you need it in your life.
And then also just the ability to say, I have an Aston Martin.
Yeah,
I know it's a joke, and I know it was, like, funny, but it's like it
you're right.
Goes a long way.
I remember owning mine and rolling down the road with my friend who I met, Nick, who bought his car because Doug bought his. So the whole reason he bought his is because he saw Doug's series on it and was like, oh man, that's such a cool car. I want to get one. And he got one because of that. And we went out to lunch one day, and we're rolling down Route 10 here in New Jersey. And these guys in this big pickup truck come flying by me, and they're rolling down the window, and they're talking to Nick, and they're like, what even are these things? And he's like, Aston Martin. He's like, what is it, Aston Martin? They had no idea what it was. But it's just that the cool factor is just, like, off the scale, and you have that sense of occasion every single time. But I will say, to Chad's point of, like, the ruinously expensive maintenance, I got the timing cover on mine was weeping, and I got a quote from the Aston Martin dealer, and just the timing cover.
Sorry.
What's that?
What was it so sad about?
Oh,
why is it funny?
We're
back to the
right
funny
over
part.
my head, and I got it after the fact, and
I got
really angry that I'm angry that I didn't get that.
Sorry. Anyway.
No, that was good. That was a good joke.
Both of you with emotional car jokes.
Oh my god, that was so good.
Okay, sorry. Anyway,
no, it was sad about the price that it cost to fix that. It was $4,400 just to fix the timing case. Just the cover. So imagine doing a timing service on that car. It would be probably north of 10 grand. So I'm like, this car is amazing, and I'd love to own it forever. But I was always scared of something breaking on it, because if it did, like, I had enough money to maybe cover it, but that's it. That one thing, I would have enough money to cover it, and then nothing else was allowed to break ever. And I'm like, well, I don't know if I could do this. So it is one of those things where it's tough to, like, sort of justify. But man, when you look at it, you're like, oh, I really want to justify that.
And I'm not gonna lie too. Just looking at this, that angle looks like Tavares's old driveway. Anyway, as you were.
It does actually.
No, like I said, in person. We all know. We all three have had experiences in and around these cars. The pictures are amazing, and they still somehow don't do it justice.
Yes,
like and there's a lot said to that. Like, man,
This car
I say
has
about my Maserati a lot. It's got some problems. It's got this. It's got that. And every time, this is one of those cars that has that. It has enough soul, enough coolness about it that you're like, you know what? I've forgiven it. Because every time I turn the key in mine and it barks to life, and I'm like, you know what? Everything's awesome now. Everything's cool.
Oh, well, you know, I think we've solidified if Chad's buying an Aston Martin V8 Vantage.
Yeah, it seems like
here's why I'm not. Okay.
even a Ford
here's
era
why
Aston
you're
Martin.
wrong.
Hold on. Because if you did this, I would still make fun of you for being a Ford guy.
Oh, you're gonna
love
love the way I would buy one of these.
It's got the crowd soul.
I mean, when we think about it, it's just a British Mustang. You know.
I mean,
so again,
you're not wrong.
No, that sounds like you love it.
So I do love it. I don't love the idea of maintenance costing a ton. Like from a real world. Yes, I am not the. I am not the warranty.
Elliott, we'll get him.
Yeah,
Elliott, you need to understand. I have a garage to where I could get on the driver's side of the car. That's it.
Back out.
Back out. Go back in. Yes, but what if I'm doing something to the car that requires that makes rolling difficult?
That's true. And you guys have winters there, so it's like a whole thing.
Excuses.
And we have these things that you might not be aware of. It's called elevation changes. But
I do not have that. I haven't had to chalk a car ever.
Right. Because golf must be fun in your state. But here's the thing. I've always loved these cars. I would have loved to have gotten it. When I saw this, I was like, man, this is my chance to own one of these things. What is my backup? Damn it.
No, right. It's like my 94 Camry.
This is my chance to own one of these. And it's like, even your brain is like, it is my chance to own one of these. Damn it.
It's just like one of those things where it's like, I forget who told the story.
Come up with a con right now.
I forget who was. I forget who. Like some comic was talking about this, and he was talking about he was in. I think he was in like Amsterdam, and he saw like one of the window girls, and like he's like walking towards it, but like subconsciously like his something in his like ass. He told the joke way better, but like just sort of deviated him, so he just kept on walking. Like that's every part of him wanted to do it, but like here's
something in your ass is telling you don't want this Aston Martin.
I mean,
that one I got.
Okay, there we go. Got it.
Not emotional enough,
yes.
Elliott. The thing here's
I like the emotional ones went over my head, but the physical ass joke, right in the wheelhouse.
I know, but
right in that 12-year-old.
The timing cover was beeping. I don't know.
I like it. I appreciate it.
It's one of those things where it's like I saw this girl running. It was like, what was she running from?
This is another one of those. So like, let's get to like one of the big things.
Sorry, go ahead.
One of the big things you've mentioned on almost every car is modability.
Yeah, that doesn't exist here.
That
it has some, but it's boutique modability, which comes with a hefty price tag.
When the fact that it's $20,000 to get a supercharger for one of these things, it's like,
and then also, I don't think there's a lot of track history of how these motors do boosted.
Right.
No, there is not.
So like with Mustangs and LSs and stuff like that, there's a bunch of people who boosted them, whatever. You're like, oh, they do this. You want to do this much.
Yeah.
Like this is not a known boosted motor, which is again why you don't see you do, but they're rare. Supercharged Ferrari 360s, 430s and stuff like that. They make kits for them, but it's like, there's no track record for it. Right. It's not a known receptive boost motor.
So it's like, it's one of those things, and it's kind of what we ran into with ours in a sense that we got the car, we did all of this is awesome, we got some wheels, we got a wrap, and then it's like, everything else to do this means I have to buy the car again.
Pretty much, yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I bought my Mustang a second time for all of the mods, but that was
I was just
going to
say you did that.
I did do that.
I know, and now you're wanting to buy it a third time.
I mean,
yes.
And a fourth. Argument could be made by the time I'm done with the next car. If it is in fact a Mustang, it will be 4 times over. Not the point. And not for
But the
nothing,
amount of mods you could do is different. Like that's therein lies
the
the difference.
Mustang was supercharger, oil
Yes.
pump gear, intake manifold, long tube headers. Like the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
I
And
have
for that,
Everything.
Yeah.
this is like, and
I'm not
we're-
leaving.
So
Yeah, you'd have to like
I want-
custom make the headers, blah
I have
blah blah.
listen. I've tried to like justify every possible reason to have one of these things, and it's just one of those things where I know, like the fire with the Mustang was devastating because it was an end of that vehicle and end of a lot of hard work. Even if I didn't do a lot of the work to it myself, the result
An era, though.
yeah, you know, I don't want to go through that feeling because now all of a sudden I have to, you know, this has X amount of miles. I'm sure there's a timing service at Y amount of miles. I don't want to feel like, oh, I'm approaching that. I need to sell it because I can't afford to do this service. Or like, man, that's a lot. And like, that means I can't do something fun with like, you know, like I was saying before about cars where like, it's that whole stage 0 thing for me, right? I don't want to do maintenance. I want to do mods, right? Like,
Yeah.
I understand. I have seen these with upwards of 80,000 miles. Now, not modded, but
right. No,
Yes.
as
Yeah.
far as what it is, they are, from all intents and purposes, a relatively reliable platform. Here's, I think, a great way to end with this and kind of bring things full circle and cement myself in Elliott's brain as a certifiable Ford guy who will never understand the glory and the genius of the LS or LT
of the pushrod LS engine. Yes.
of that. Even though I would absolutely get one in a heartbeat if it was in the right vehicle. For me, it's always been with one of these that it almost begs, if for someone like me, who I understand is probably 1 in 10 quadrillion, if it could fit within the strut towers, which I'm not 100% sure it can, but if it
Are you
could,
going to tell me you want a Coyote?
Coyote swap one of these with a blown motor off of Copart or something like that.
Listen, that'd be sick.
Like
That would
that's
be
like
sick, yeah.
because
Undeniably.
now it's one of those things where the
And
transmission.
the other thing, don't even mind because even though the Coyote came after Ford's era of this thing, I still consider it okay because you're like technically not out of bounds.
Yes,
You're still
it's not an LS
swapping
in
a
there.
Ford engine into a Ford.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
So
And it's like
I
one of those
actually do
things
think
where
that
like
that's a
I've
cool-
had
that's a
ideas
really-
with
that's
these
a
things.
I actually don't like it's not as outlandish of a suggestion as you might have thought.
I know.
Yeah.
Because like there's a lot of things because this is a rear transaxle if memory serves.
Yes.
You know, worst case scenario, if like the transmission's not up to snuff with like say a Whipple Coyote, well,
It's
I
probably
wonder.
not. So just already.
I wonder how difficult. I'm sure there's mounting and there's custom drive shafts and there's all sorts of like spit rotational mass things to consider. But I wonder how difficult it would be to totally fuck with people's heads because Coyote in an Aston Martin, what the hell are you doing? Coyote in an Aston Martin with a Corvette transmission, what the hell are you doing? Like, you know,
I would get
it's almost
very
the
excited
exact
about this.
it's almost the exact opposite of the guys who put an LS in a car and a Ford 9-inch, right? Like,
I mean, look,
Yeah.
you could put a Coyote in this and it would still maintain its Ford heritage.
That's what I was getting. I was like, I'm not
Yeah.
against this at all.
well, that what
Yeah.
I'm saying, like, so like that's what I probably once a month I look on Copart for one of these that has like a blown motor or it's like, okay, it's damaged but it's not beyond repair, and it's like, let me just see why is someone paying $25,000 for this? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and
it's,
he's got a plan.
you know, yeah.
I guess the biggest question here, and we'll pull this all together, is
Yeah.
one, Elliot, thank you for the list because there's some great options on here. Two,
eclectic.
did Elliot give you something to think about, Chad? That's the biggest question here.
Yes.
No.
Well, no. Let me.
No, buying a Mustang. No.
So, in a
I'm
lot.
getting an S550, but thank you for the suggestion.
Look, I'll be lying
Give
if
it
I
the
didn't.
upside. I did this
Chat
full
will
list,
back
but
me
you
up
get an
on
upside
this,
anyway.
or what have you. I would be lying if I didn't say that an S550, although a post 2018 S550, so Gen 3 Coyote, better compression, yada yada yada.
Yeah,
Really?
20 cc's more of displacement, right?
Yeah.
One more compression, I don't know how we measure
exactly one more compression in the ratio.
Plus one compressions.
It's like I would be lying if that wasn't the leader in the clubhouse. Straight up. However, you've made me reconsider. However, you have made me kind of come back to that quote unquote 88 ADD moment of
the American Disabilities Act.
I mean, one could argue with the amount of time I've poured into looking at these cars and how I've literally made myself delirious of like combining 4 cars together because I've looked at so many in such a short period of time. That's the leader in the clubhouse. The Mustang's the leader in the clubhouse.
I want to applaud you though, because where I go is like, if somebody told me I had X amount of money, I go, oh, okay, I can afford this, and I'm like, but for a little bit more, I could get this. And if I'm going to spend that much, I might as well spend this. And next thing you know, I've talked myself into a $120,000 car.
Well, right. That's how it goes, right?
Here's how your brain works with that.
But I've got a nice down payment, so it'll be fine.
Here's how your brain immediately does that. My brain does exactly the same thing, but it's on the modifying side of things. So
which is why I knew that, which is why I gave you $15,000 Mustangs. Going, dude, you've got a lot of felt on the table here.
Yes, and a guy with 4 teeth who did the building. But I'll leave it.
I went with. I'm going to struggle to eat forever. But I will have one of these.
Yes. So what I'll say with this is like you've brought some of the contenders back into the fold.
R8.
Yeah, somebody's like, "Why do you got all this money? You have a 430," and I was like, "No, it's my life is a struggle."
It's because I eat Costco ramen 3 meals a day.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, no, I'm honestly very unhealthy and everything. Like, it's
Elliot, you have this Ferrari, and my God, you've lost so much. You've never looked better.
Yeah, you've lost weight. You bought a Ferrari. What are you doing? And I'm like, well, making bad choices.
But yeah, I've lost 30 pounds, and my cholesterol has gained 2 zeros.
Exactly. So. It's like I'm retaining water like you wouldn't believe.
My sodium intake is dangerous.
Yeah.
This isn't creatine. This is all water. Yeah.
It's water. It's just 100% water.
But I'll kind of end it here. The cars like the C7, even cars like the C6 Grand Sport, the ATS-V, I had kind of looked at them and been like, all right, because I am, believe it or not, on a bit of a timeline. Not because I want to get this stupid process done and over with, but because if I do end up buying a new car within 90 days of my car being totaled, I do get some pretty nice financial discounts with my financier. So
cool. That's incentive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that I would need 90 days to find my car because
although you do, because your stuff keeps getting sold, so I understand.
Yeah, this process should have been over last week, but I digress. You've brought those cars back into okay, I'm going to revisit these if I can't find what I want, and I start to either get hella impatient or my deadline's starting to loom or become on the horizon kind of a thing. To now, it's like, maybe I should go back and maybe I should at least drive a couple of these just because I know what an S550 drives like, right? Like, I should at this point.
Just to revisit.
But to drive the other cars, just to be like, you know what? I may have knocked them off their top of the pedestal or something a little too quickly or something. So, like, you've made me think. And that's kind of the exercise I was hoping to go through. I was either looking for, like...
Tough thing for Chad to do, think.
Hey, look, man, I mean... I got 3 associate's degrees, so I think kind of good. So, but no, and I do want to say thank you to Elliott because he did genuinely take some considerable amount of time to kind of put this list together, and we got some good laughs. There's some cars that made me think or what have you. There's some other stuff that it's like
obviously there are a few in there that are funny intentionally. But
right, and I like that. If they were all like, if all of this is you seriously selling, I was like, well, you like, and then we get to like the 4th car where I'm like, yeah, and you're like flipping your desk, like, I'm never doing anything for this guy again.
What do you want?
It's like there's no pleasing you. There's no pleasing you.
I appreciate. No, I thank you guys for having me on, obviously regularly, let alone to let me curate another list.
Yes.
This is fun. And like I said, now all I need to do is you guys need to curate a list for me.
I was just going to say,
but it's gonna be insane because like my counting list will be like, all right, it's a fantasy where I'm 23 and I'm living in Washington D.C. So you need
Who
to
fantasizes about that?
Apparently,
69 Lincoln with suicide doors.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, I'm saying like I got to give you an insanely specific scenario because I can't just be like, give me cars that I like for this X five. You said 23.
Ooh, I like that idea.
DC. I don't have kids, and I need to impress women, and they'd be like, okay, and then you come up with a list of that.
I mean, you come up with an idea, and we'll curate a list for you.
I've already got the format. We're gonna keep a scoreboard
criteria that both of you guys could collab on. It'd be very
yes.
I have an idea on this one, real quick, and then we will absolutely call it for.
Or do you want to voice it here? Or do you want to save it for the chat?
Well, number one, we're gonna involve. Actually, this is brilliant. If I do say so myself, I've thought, and it's come out fantastically. It's competition. So we each come up with kind of a class of car that fits your requirements theoretically. The impressing women part is going to be tricky because it's like, look at this Viper
living in Washington D.C. It is one of my favorite classic cars. It was like it's entirely practical.
But each one of us, Chat, Greg, myself, comes up and like, here are your three options. You pick the option you like the best. Boom, point on the board, and then we do something like if like one of us wins, like we get a shirt that just says I know Elliott Alvis, like just something kind of funny that only like the three of us would know or something like that. Like
there we go.
And if Chat wins, I'll have to think of something, but like work something.
They'll get a free T-shirt.
Yeah, so like something like that. But I like that idea, and we have about a month to cultivate this idea, and I can't wait.
I like it. I like where this is going.
So just remember, I had an idea, and you all liked it. So that's a perfect place to say.
Remember this moment.
Note the date and time in the record.
I'll let you guys wrap up.
Absolutely.
Yes, for sure.
Once again, we love having Elliott on. Definitely makes the show interesting. I love the perspective you bring. It's definitely helps with us and talking about stuff because Chat at this point has kind of learned where we stand on stuff. So when we bring up a topic,
I gotta break you guys' BS up a little bit.
That's right.
I mean,
exactly.
I'm here for it. So again,
I will do my best. If I'm available, I will try to hop on more than once a month. But we do have a standing first of the month.
Right, and
that's right.
Listen, we can talk about this more
off
stream,
important of the month.
If you're available, shoot us a message. 99.9% of the time will be good. Our next guest as of the moment isn't scheduled until August. So outside of
oh man, I got a slot.
So
we have plenty of time.
And so, but to everyone in chat, to Jesse, for Doug, thank you for donating. Everyone who liked the stream, shared the stream, and just frankly watched and commented. We thank you from the bottom of our heart. We do this for you guys. I know when we have guests on, we're not as conversant, but we try. And again, thank you guys for hopefully you guys enjoyed it. But for this one, I'm Chad. You got Greg all the way there on the right, and
I've been Elliott.
And he's been Elliott, our number one part-time host.
That's what they say on TV.
I've said it to close out YouTube videos before, so
I'm that guy.
I used to be Chad.
Be like, thank you. I've been Elliott.
I'm Ron Burgundy.
Yeah.
But
all right,
guys, we'll see you in the next one.